They smell blood in the chop shop. The Giants have ridden into town, and the Braves are mounting their annual second-half charge. Wednesday Night Baseball, Hi-Yo Silver! Last night in game one of this three-game series, the Braves took a page out of the Giants' book. David Justice with the defense. In the fourth inning, Barry Bonds, who went 4 for 4, homered, and the Giants had a rare lead. But by the time David Justice deposited this two-run shot over the fence in the fifth inning, the Braves were off and running to their 8-2 victory. Welcome to Atlanta, where the tomahawk chops are in full swing. The calendar says September, so here come the Braves at home against the San Francisco Giants. Their win last night pulls them to within 3.5 games of the Giants, the closest Atlanta has been to first place since May 17th. Hello once again, everybody. I'm Chris Berman. It's our job and our privilege here at ESPN to bring you the hottest and most exciting baseball game that we can. Hot? Certainly. It's Atlanta on September the 1st. Exciting? You got it. Nobody's playing hotter ball than the Braves as they try and gun down the Giants. No two teams have better records than the two teams we see tonight. Working with me, as always, is Buck Martinez. And Buck, the San Francisco Giants season, let's make it akin to the Kentucky Derby. They got off to a great start. They're around in the stretch heading for home, and all of a sudden, after a great start, they've thrown a shoe. Here comes Secretariat from behind in the form of the Braves. Do the Giants have enough to make it to the finish line first?
Yeah, I think they do, Chris. You know, the Giants, they're like a thoroughbred. They've got some key injuries right now. They don't have Will Clark. They don't have Darren Lewis. They lost starters Buddy Black and Trevor Wilson. But they built themselves a 10-game lead back in July just to get over spells like this. And what they have to realize here in these next two games at Atlanta, all they have to do is win one of the two, get out of town, and they don't have to worry about the Braves any longer. They have had a good season, and they have built themselves a cushion to get over this.
However, the Braves are hotter than anybody, winning of the 17 of the last 20 games. Joining us always on Wednesdays now, as well as Peter Gammons. And Peter, when they got Greg Maddox in the offseason, people said, well, the Braves could have 4 20-game winners. They probably won't, but those horses are certainly pitching like 20-game winners right now.
Well, they are, Chris. I mean, there's some great stories on the Braves. Fred McGriff made a great deal to the offense. David Justice is putting a late race on for the MVP, but the story of this team is, as it has been the last 3 years when they've been 136 and 66 in the stretch, has been their starting 4 pitchers. I mean, if John Smoltz wins tonight, they'll have 4 of the 6 top winners. They've got 4 of the top 11 in innings pitched. And Smoltz is a very key guy. He's 5-2 since the All-Star break, but his earned run average is .423. They'd like to see him go out and just let it fly. I mean, this guy has the best stuff in the National League. They want to see him let it go. If he does, oh, this is going to be a great race the last month.
Well, John Smoltz tonight gets the ball for Bobby Cox's Braves. Dusty Baker gives the ball to the youngster Brian Hickerson. What do you say, Kemosabe's? Let's ride off into the sunset with the Giants and Braves in a moment. ESPN's presentation of Major League Baseball is brought to you by Smooth Bush Beer and Easy Drinking Bush Light. Dusty Baker's Giants are raring to go. They want to get one against the Braves, but Atlanta has other IDs. Stick around.
Wednesday night baseball from Fulton County Stadium. John Smoltz about to get out to the mound, get ready to take on the Giants. We'll be taking you right back out there. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our coverage. I'm Gary Miller. I'll be here in the studio keeping you posted on all the other pennant races, including some action that's already happened this afternoon. The Blue Jays with a 1.5 lead in the Yankees coming into the day. Ricky Henderson led off this game with a home run against his former team, and they kept on hitting. Randy Norr with a 3-run poke in the third. That's his 4th of the year. Jays led 5-0. Juan Guzman did the rest, and the A's just kept falling apart. The throw, Mike Border can't handle it. Jays roll 8-3 to expand their lead to 2 games. Guzman unbeaten since mid-July. It's the 63rd time in his career, as you saw him score there, that Henderson has led off a game with a home run. And the Jays win it 8-3. Elsewhere this afternoon, Milwaukee bombed Kansas City. Hal McRae tossed out for the 8th time this season. His team is 6.5 back. Seattle took care of the Tigers 9-3. Ken Griffey Jr. hit his 40th home run. Just the 10th player to do that before the age of 24. This is Pete Incaviglia knocking in Darren Dalton. The Cubs allowing the Phils to beat them 4-1 this afternoon behind Terry Mulholland to expand their comfortable lead. The Astros won at Shea Stadium. Later, it's L.A. against Pittsburgh about to get underway. The Marlins hosting the Padres. Our game at Fulton County Stadium. Then the Cardinals in about an hour. The Rockies are hosting Montreal. The Expos have won 7 straight. One of the note in the Phillies, they picked up Don Paul from the White Sox. They continue to add relievers from Chicago to try and strengthen their chances for the postseason. We're about ready for the biggest game of the night. Let's go back out to 3 men in the booth at Fulton County Stadium with Chris Berman.
John Smoltz is going to start game 2 in this series, and as Peter mentioned at the opening, Smoltz may have the best stuff in the National League. Dusty Baker knows his ball club needs a win here in Atlanta, and let's have a look at Dusty Baker's lineup here tonight in game 2. This is the Energizer lineup for Dusty Baker's Giants. Leading off, it's Dave Martinez in center field. Robbie Thompson, the second baseman. Willie McGee's been dropped into the 3rd spot. Matt Williams is the cleanup hitter. Barry Bonds switches from 3rd to 5th. Todd Benzinger's been the hottest hitter for Dusty Baker. The switch hitter batting behind Bonds. Good protection there. Youngster Royce Clayton is in the 7th spot. Jeff Reed gets a start tonight. Left-handed hitting Reed behind the plate. And Brian Hickerson's on the mound for the Giants. John Smoltz, 13-9, 3.48 ERA. This is his 29th start of the season. Smoltz is the epitome of the Braves staff in my mind, in that he throws a lot of strikes, uses a good fastball to both sides of the plate, has an outstanding curveball, and mixes in a very effective split finger pitch. Defensively, it's Gant, Nixon, and Justice in the outfield. Veteran Terry Pendleton at 3rd base. Jeff Blauser's done a great job. This is his 131st start at shortstop. Mark Lemke, very solid at 2nd. Fred McGriff, since coming over from the Padres, every day at 1st base. And veteran Damon Berryhill is behind the plate.
We got time for me? Here we are. Well, I'm glad to join you guys. 3 excited men in the booth, that's for sure. And Jeff Blauser, is there anybody been swinging a hotter bat? And, of course, playing good defense, and Blauser hitting over 400 during this hot streak.
He's done a great job, and basically he's one of the unsung heroes in this Braves lineup. Jeff Blauser, along with his double-play teammate Mark Lemke, have been outstanding, and they've been consistent all year long.
Now kick back, relax, and enjoy big-time baseball. 4.5 weeks to go to the post. The calendar turns to September. And the Giants and the Braves, 2 teams staring each other down the bore, as they would say in an old Western shootout. Dave Martinez ups it, strike 1 from John Smoltz. Until Darren Lewis comes back, which could be this weekend in St. Louis, it'll be Dave Martinez against the righties and Rickert Finiti, the Dutchman, the Flying Dutchman, who was sent down for a couple days, but he'll be back tomorrow night to hit against the left-hander Avery. They will platoon in center field.
Martinez has had a lot of success against Smoltz.
And in front of that one a little bit, and count is 1-2. I think The game plan for the Giants tonight, guys, is although Smoltz can be overpowering at times. I mean, he led the National League in strikeouts last year with 215. He's second behind Rio this year. Because he's been a little while and the ball is up, I think the Giants are trying to get up hacking, get something going, which they've done in none of the 4 games against the Braves. Martinez hacks it to right center field. Justice is there, and there is 1 out.
Chris, that's an interesting game plan to have against Smoltz, because the one thing Leo Mazzoni preaches to these pitchers all the time, first pitch strikes. He was showing me a list. They've thrown over 1,400 first pitch strikes, the 4 starters. They've only given up 118 hits on those 1,400 first pitch strikes on the whole season, which kind of tells you if you've got quality on that first pitch, it doesn't matter.
Robbie Thompson, who has been the hottest Giant at the plate these last few weeks, looks at a strike. Well, the pitchers have certainly practiced with Leo Mazzoni preachers, that's for sure. Doesn't get enough credit. Yeah, he's got the horses, and this horse is ahead of Thompson 0-2. He's got the horses, but he's got them on a pretty darn good plan.
There's Mazzoni, who does a great job with his pitchers. And unorthodox in this day and age, the way he uses them to throw so much.
A little excuse me, reach out and touch somewhat effort by Thompson, but Blauser is there. And there are 2 out in the Giant first.
Well, here's what we were talking about, just how valuable Jeff Blauser has been as the everyday shortstop, ranging into shallow left field, takes that ball over his head. And this is a very solid Braves defense. And when you have this kind of defense behind you as a pitcher, that makes you want to throw that first pitch over. Put it in play.
Me and Willie McGee now steps up. McGee will hit number 3 until Will Clark comes back, and that won't be for a couple of weeks at the earliest. There's a strike to McGee. McGee, a veteran hitter who Dusty Baker feels, although he's obviously not a classic number 3 batter, that given the changes in the lineup, he would be less apt to press and less apt to change his approach in his at-bats. Whether he hits 2 or 3 or 6 or 1. So he's going to be in the air at number 3, and he's down 0-2. One thing we should tell our viewers that the field is wet. The outfield grass is wet. It rained very hard about an hour before the start of the game. You'll see some puddles out on the warning track, especially in right center field. They got the tarps out in a hurry, but it was torrential for about 25 minutes. So keep that in mind as you watch the game tonight. There could be some tricky plays in the outfield. Now the count is 2-2 to McGee.
Well, John Smoltz has come out here and shown the Giants that he's going to get his fastball over. He's going to get his breaking ball over, and you're going to have to think about all of his pitches. He hasn't gotten to the split finger pitch yet.
Oh, he just blistered that one past Willie McGee. So the Braves fans on their feet already. A 1-2-3 first for John Smoltz. The Braves coming up to hack against Hickerson. Back in the bottom of the first inning, you look up at the skies now, you wouldn't have known that it did rain, but it was hard. A hard rain was going to fall, babe, and tell you what, Bobby Cox and the Atlanta Braves have been putting a hard rain on the San Francisco Giants. 17 out of the last 20. And here's our Energizer lineup tonight for the Braves. Otis perfectly clear. Nixon leads off in center field. Jeff see-through Blauser at second and shortstop. Ron Extravagant hitting left at third. The crime dog, Fred McGriff, hitting cleanup against the lefty. Terry Pendleton moves up to the 5th spot. And David Chief Justice moved down to the 6th spot. Damon Berryhill, big hit last night, hitting 7th behind the plate. Mark Officer Lemke, also a big 2-out hit in the 3rd inning last night. And John Smoltz, number 9, against the left-hander who began the year as a relief pitcher, but now he's made his 12th start of the year, Brian Hickerson.
Well, Brian Hickerson got hit around pretty good by the Braves out in Candlestick in that last 3-game series. He got his fastball upstairs, and when he does that, it has a tendency to flatten out and stay along the plane of the bat. Look for him to throw more fastballs in the lower part of the strike zone and try to get it down and away from the right-handed hitters. Defensively, only the Pirates have made fewer errors than the Giants. They've made 90. It's Bonds, Martinez, and McGee in the outfield. Williams and Clayton on the left side. The veteran Robbie Thompson at second base. Benzinger at first base. Jeff Reed gets the start tonight.
Otis Nixon up, and with Deion Sanders on the DL. Remember all the trade talk a couple of months. Otis Nixon wants to go. Could they trade him? They didn't. As Peter, you pointed out on Baseball Tonight this Sunday, It's a good thing they did not get rid of Otis Nixon. He has been the igniter.
Well, he has been, and he's really played a great center field. I mean, there's nobody like him as far as getting that foot up and going above the wall, but he's given them a great deal with Dion out. It would have been a lot to ask of Tony Tarasco to take his place.
Nixon will foul this one out of play. Deion Sanders been working out with the Braves here, but he has that larynx infection that really, it's a hack. And I don't mean obviously a hack when you go up to the plate, but it's so much so that as soon as he works up the heartbeat a little bit running, he said as soon as he rounded the bases, tried to go the bases in full speed yesterday, he got between second and third and he couldn't breathe. So he says a good thing he wasn't trying to play football at this time of year, because that would be out. He hopes to be back in about 5 or 6 days. Count is 1-2 on Otis Nixon. Brian Hickerson from Bemidji, Minnesota. Went to the University of Minnesota. Otis hits this to left center field. Barry Bonds, a long run for him, but he's got it under control and makes the play at the edge of the warning track. 1 out.
Barry Bonds gets so much recognition for what he can do with the bat, but let me tell you, there are few left fielders that can play as well as Barry Bonds. He was playing Otis Nixon over toward the line in left center, and now he just waves off the center fielder, takes it just a stride short of the warning track in left center.
Well, that will bring up the red hot, and I do mean red hot, Jeff Blauser. He's been the most consistent hitter for the Braves this year. And on a team with 3 of the 4 top home run hitters in the National League, that might surprise you, but he's the one that's been over 300 just about every month. Blauser hitting .418 during this 17 out of 20 stretch. Hits this one out of play down the right field line.
And Chris, it was Blauser last night when Billy Swift had got the first 10 batters in a row, had a great at bat, fought off a tough pitch away, dumped it into right field, and got them started in that rally that knocked Swift around and broke the game open. And he's been a terrific offensive player for them. One pitch.
Got the outside corner. Count is 1-2. The last Braves shortstop, by the way, to hit 300 for an entire season, Alvin Dark, 1948 Boston Braves. Right near your house, right, Peter?
Yeah, I'm about half a mile away.
Half a mile from the county fair, right? Foul back and just below us. Half a mile from the county fair, Van Morrison. Oh, the water. It's just his birthday the other day, by the way, just in case you wanted to know that. Well, Brian Hickerson certainly making the biggest start of his career. No question about that. And Blauser fouls it back again.
Now that's the pitch Hickerson needs tonight to be effective against the Braves. That fastball down, low and away from the right-handed hitters. Out in San Francisco, the ball was about mid-thigh. Here he gets it down and away from Blauser, and all he can do is foul it out of play. He's got a very good fork ball that moves somewhat like a knuckleball. It's not a true split finger pitch. It's more a funny breaking fork ball.
His last start was 8 days ago at Candlestick in the middle game of that 3-game series, and he left after 5 1/3. There you see his line. He pitched earlier in the season in relief against the Braves and not much effect. Good eye by Blauser, and the count is full. No score, bottom of the first inning. Giants and Braves. Oh, he gets rung up by home plate umpire Joe West. And there are 2 down.
Well, there's that pitch Hickerson needs working for him. Look at Reed's target, down and away from Blauser. Movement just off the plate. Joe West rings up Blauser, and that's a very significant pitch for Hickerson's confidence here in the first inning, to know that he can make that pitch when he needs it.
So 2 down for Hickerson, and here is Ronnie Gant. Gant with already the career as the 31 home runs, and of course he's a 30-30 man twice. Only guy who's coaching first base for the Giants, Bobby Bonds and Willie Mays, have done it back-to-back seasons like Gant. Count is 1-1. Hickerson showing some good giddy-up tonight. Buck, couple pitches in the low 90s.
Yeah, he's spotting his fastball okay right now. What he needs to do is smooth out his delivery and get the breaking ball a little bit lower. There's that fastball again right at the knees. That's a good pitch for him.
And obviously Joe West is seeing that very clearly. He's giving him the strike on those pitches.
Yeah, that's good that they match up early. Hickerson hitting that outside corner and West giving it to him. Emotions are so important for a pitcher to get under control in the first inning. There's the forkball. What happens when you've got a lot of adrenaline going on the mound in a big game like Hickerson might out there tonight? You have a tendency to overthrow your breaking ball. You're just not patient enough to throw it smoothly and allow it to break. When that happens, it'll stay up in the strike zone and become very hittable.
He's trying to nibble at that outside corner. He just missed that time. The count is full.
Dick Bull wanted that pitch. He said, Joe, you've been giving it to me all inning long, and then you missed that one.
Well, the one thing they want with a pitcher like this is consistency from the umpire.
That one definitely missed outside and low, and we have our first base runner of the game, Gant, aboard with a base on ball. And that will bring up the crime dog here in Atlanta. Very muggy day and rains, we told you, about 6:30 local time. And now the rains have gone. Doesn't look like we're having that problem the rest of the evening. The only problem the Giants have is the Braves with the heat. Crime dog, one of only 12 major leaguers to hit 30 or more home runs 6 straight years. Everyone else on that list is either in or will be in the Hall of Fame. Swinging at the first pitch and foul. I mean, you're wondering what the list is. Why don't I read it? You tell me if they're in or will be in the Hall of Fame. Jimmy Fox did it 12 straight times. 12 straight times. That's ridiculous. Lou Gehrig, Eddie Matthews, Mike Schmidt 9 straight times. The Babe and the Mick 8 straight times. Hank Aaron, Ralph Kiner 7 straight. Harmon Killebrew, Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Fred McGriff 6 straight times. That's a pretty good list.
That's a strong list, Chris. Good job.
It's hard to tell which is wetter, huh, Buck? The outfield grass at the back of my shirt?
A little bit muggy tonight. Yeah.
Hot town, summer in the city. Count is 0-1 to McGriff. Gant on. 2 out. The check swing, try to get out of the way. Williams on the run makes the play, and the Braves are gone here in the first. We've played one in Atlanta, the middle game of this very important 3-game set. No score. And here in Atlanta, no score between the Braves and the Giants. Matt Williams, Barry Bonds, and Todd Mercedes Benzinger coming up for the Giants. And just look at those 3 spots in the lineup. And Dusty Baker made a lineup change on the off day on Saturday. He decided that even though the numbers don't bear it out, Matt Williams is a much more productive, or at least more relaxed at the plate, with Bonds hitting behind him. So even though Clark is hurt, he's got Williams 4, Bonds down at 5, which means that Todd Benzinger will see all the good pitches at the 6th spot. What did he do in the first 2 games of the lineup change? Hit 3 home runs in those 2 games against Florida. So 4, 5, 6 is Williams, Bonds, and Benzinger. And we get power hitter against power pitcher against power hitter. One of the classic confrontations you will see tonight. Smoltz and Williams. field line. This will go for extra bases. Over in one of those puddles over there, Gant plays the carom, fumbles it for a moment. Williams on at second with a double.
29th double of the year for Matt Williams. Ron again had some trouble with it, but it didn't make any difference. That's all Williams was going to get there leading off the second. He gets the fastball because Smoltz had fallen behind with the curveball right inside the line. Frank Pulley indicates fair ball. It caroms off the wall. Gant overruns it, but it's really no problem. He knows he's got Williams running. It's a leadoff double for Matt Williams, and that's the benefits of hitting in front of Barry Bonds. You get a lot of fastballs.
Well, now with first base open, how careful do we think Smoltz will be to Bonds?
Very careful.
Thank you. Barry has been intentionally walked. Not that I'm saying they would do that here, obviously, in this situation. He's been intentionally walked 35 times. The record, Willie McCovey, 45 in 1969. Bonds went 4 for 4 last night, including home run number 39.
Well, that took a little pressure off him here in Atlanta. He's been taking a lot of heat from these fans for what's happened in the playoffs the last couple of years. What they failed to have noticed is that in the last couple of years in the playoffs, the guys who have eaten him alive have been Lee Brandt, Avery, and Glavine. Guys that he really didn't see during the regular season very often, because when he took days off against the Braves, he took them off against the left-handers.
Bonds hits it to left field. Ron Gant hasn't played perfectly. Williams stays at second base, and there's one out in the Giants' second. And I think that cheer is always one of relief. I mean, it's a louder cheer on the road when you retire Barry Bonds than just, okay, our team got it out.
Yeah, everybody recognizes just how dangerous Bonds can be and what kind of impact he can have on the game. So when he makes it out, everybody's a little more comfortable.
Well, here's the fellow we were talking about, Todd Benzinger, who in the last 3 or 4 weeks, even with the 2 sluggers we've just seen, according to the manager Dusty Baker, has been hitting the ball harder than any other Giant. And it's 1-0 to Benzinger. Last night, Todd went over. We told you 3 homers in the 2 games before that, both wins in Florida. And there it is. And that's primarily with limited action. Guys off the bench have done the job for the Giants this year, but now they have to do the job, many of them as starters. Ball gets by Berryhill. Williams to third.
And that's just a concentration problem there. Berryhill took his eye off it just for a second, and it snuck under his glove. Called for the breaking ball. You can see how it's down. He didn't get the glove down in time. Didn't go down on his knees to keep the ball in front of him. Matt Williams, a very good base runner, moves over to third base. That's a wild pitch, but Berryhill will know that that's one of those balls he should keep in front of him.
Pitch. Now back off the equipment of Berryhill. 2-1.
Infield is drawn in here early in the ball game, and this is the situation where the Giants really have to cash in a run. John Smoltz is not going to give you that many scoring opportunities. So you get one early because of the wild pitch. You've got to cash it in. Talked about Benzinger being a hot hitter. Now Bobby Cox is directing the infield. You get that slow roller on the corners. He wants to go home, cut off the run, but he's now backed up Blauser a bit at shortstop.
Oh, that one passed Benzinger. 2-2.
Benzinger is a very good hitter, has been throughout his career, even though he's not really been an everyday player in many situations. But right now, what he has to do is change his sights. With 2 strikes, he's got to think left center, center fielder. Get the fly ball to the outfield and cash in this run.
Count runs to full at 3-2.
And the dilemma for Smoltz is Todd is a dead low ball fastball hitter, but do you pitch him up in this situation? No.
Royce Clayton on deck, the young shortstop. Off-speed pitched, it missed, and Benzinger is aboard. So the Giants, with 1 out, have runners on the corners for Royce Clayton. Bobby Cox's Atlanta Braves, amazing. And this now the 5th game of the series. The 36 innings played before this, and then the one tonight. The Giants have had the lead for 1/2 inning. Bonds' home run last night in the 4th inning. They had the lead for about 8 minutes. For San Francisco fans, it was a tremendous 8 minutes. But the problem was that there have been about 12 hours when they have not had the lead. And so the Giants are looking at a rare opportunity, a chance to get a lead and give the pitching staff of Dusty Baker some help. The Giants will take their chances, bullpen versus bullpen, if it gets in that situation. Clayton looks at strike one on the outside corner. Royce this year hitting at .278. It's been about the .290, .280 all year long. Had some problems early fielding. Has pretty much shored them up. He's never had trouble fielding before. It was always the bat that was the question, according to him. Well, here you go. We talked about the 4 games. This is the agate. The Braves have outscored the Giants 28-10. Out-hit them 45-30. The errors, even the Giants have made more, which is an eye-opener. And there's that lead that we told you about. 8 minutes in 4 games plus. Ouch, Bab.
Well, that's what happens when you have a good pitching staff. There's Bonds. The only time they had a lead was that home run.
There's some heat against Clayton, and he'll sit down. A big strikeout for John Smoltz, and Clayton looked overmatched on that one.
He went right upstairs with the fastball and overpowered him. Here's a veteran pitcher recognizing a weakness of a young hitter and exploits it.
93-mile-an-hour fastball. Kurt Manwaring has the night off. That's just a night off every now and then deal to the starting catcher. So that'll bring Jeff Reed up. Reed, 30 years of age, has been around Minnesota, Montreal, Cincinnati, Joliet, Illinois. And Manwaring needs that breather every now and then, that's for sure. Matt Williams at third base. Todd Petzinger at first base. Giants trying to cash in. Ball gets behind Berryhill, but not. He still doesn't know where it is. And at least the runner at first base, Benzinger, darts to second. Williams would not have made it home. But it was like he was doing a dance. It's like a hot tamale.
Well, he never saw it. But Matt Williams saw it and recognized it was too close to home for him to go. This is the fork ball, and he does a good job to block it, but then he doesn't know where it's at. He still can't find it. Help me out, John. You can see Matt Williams come down the line. He can see where the ball is. It's right behind Berryhill, so he knows he can't take off.
Where is it? Somewhere. No, where? No, where? Oh, there it is. These things are small sometimes.
That's a helpless feeling, believe me. You know it's close, but you're really not sure where it's at.
Well, now what they're going to do is put Reed aboard and pitch to the pitcher, Brian Hickerson, who did not have a major league hit until this year. Admittedly, he had pitched almost exclusively in relief, being called up late in '91 and last year in '92. But here it is, the Giants with the bases loaded, and Brian Hickerson coming up. Hickerson is 3 for 21. All 3 of those hits are singles. And those are, as we say, his only 3 hits lifetime.
What he has to do now is step in the box, be ready to hit, and swing at the first fastball he sees. Just try to take advantage of Smoltz getting ahead of him.
That fastball was up and outside. Ball 1. Not that one.
It's interesting because on the first 8 batters, he started 4 of them off with breaking balls, got 3 of them over for first pitch strikes. And I was sort of interested that he'd start them off with a fastball up and out of the strike zone there.
Ball 2 inside. Williams at third base. Benzinger, the runner at second base. Jeff Reed, the runner at first base. Well, I would doubt we'd see a green light in this situation. Have I learned something, Buck?
You're picking it up.
Thank you. was almost a little high, but Joe West gave him the strike call, so the count on Hickerson is now 2-1.
Right at the top of the strike zone, 2-ball, no strike pitch to the pitcher. You can see it couldn't have gone much higher.
That's a good call. Swung on and missed, strike 2. The Giants scrounging for runs against this pitcher-potent Atlanta Braves team. Have the bases loaded, but have their pitcher Hickerson up against the fireballer John Smoltz. 2-2 pitch. Swung on and missed. A pair of strikeouts here in the top of the second inning for John Smoltz, and the Braves wriggle free. Heading to the bottom of the second, David Justice will be up second. Giants and Braves scoreless in the bottom of the second here at Atlanta. Chris Berman, Buck Martinez, and Peter Gammons with you. We kick everything off this weekend. We start with college football tomorrow night at our weekend kickoff special, beginning at 7:30 Eastern time, and then just a couple of ticks before 8 o'clock, we roll right into Johnny Majors and his return to Pitt. Remember, coach a national championship team with Tony Dorsett, the running back. Well, now he is back. They're playing at Southern Miss, who always pull an upset or two in the college football season. Early September, and we got college football. Nelly. Another sellout crowd here in Atlanta, 46,000 plus. We'll wait the official figures. But boy, it is amazing that here in Atlanta, with Terry Pendleton coming up, the first week of September, and there's baseball all over the paper. I mean, it's used in college football, high school football. You can't find it. It's in the agate, Peter.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I was kidding Stan Kasten, the president of the Braves, yesterday. My goodness, there wasn't high school football until the back page of the sports section. It used to lead the section on September 1st.
It has all changed thanks to the Braves. Pendleton, David Justice on deck, who had 4 RBIs last night, and Damon Berryhill. Reason Pendleton hits number 5 is A. He hits 5 and Justice 6 against the lefties. B. He's 7 for 11 against Brian Hickerson. Foul back. One other attendance note. We said it, yet another sellout crowd. With tonight's crowd of over 46,000, we expect it's going to break the Braves franchise record for attendance. Last year, 3,077,400. They'll go over that tonight. And right now they're on track to reach 3.8 million here in Atlanta, in a park that, doesn't hold 70,000. Good job, fans. And while we're at it, the San Francisco Giants have already set a San Francisco attendance record of 2.1 million. They just drew over 2 million in '89 when they went to the World Series. They're projecting at 2.6 million. So there's some folks in the parks this year, certainly in these two cities.
Well, what it tells you is there's no better promotion than winning.
Yeah.
Put a good product on the field, people will show up. In San Francisco, they've been playing a lot of day games, and they still have drawn record crowds.
Now, they thought that they were going to move out of town. It's kind of like the new Coke and Classic Coke. You leave it alone, and they'll come back, and it's better than ever. That's the way the Giants have played this year. Peter McGowan, the aggressive ownership, changing the way Candlestick is, much they could. Signing the best player in baseball. They've been in first place almost all the season. Count is 3-2.
Now Reed's going to go out and talk to Hickerson right here. He jumped out ahead of Terry Pendleton, and right there, I think what Reed's concerned about is Hickerson really tried to hump up on this fastball. When he does that, his ball will straighten out and get up there where it's hittable. You could see that Reed had his target on that outside part of the plate.
David Justice, who has homered 5 times in his last 5 games, the imposing figure on deck. Full count, leading off the bottom of the second inning for the Braves, and Pendleton fouls it back.
Chris, you know what's interesting is that people talk about, well, you have to have old established rivalries. There was never, or there hasn't been a rivalry between the Giants and the Braves since 1969. And yet all of a sudden, you go out to Candlestick and the Braves were out there last week. It was wild. Back here this week, it seemed like half of Atlanta was waiting for Barry Bonds to come into town.
Ripped into right field, the base hit by Pendleton. So the Braves have their lead runner aboard here in the bottom of the second inning. Pendleton fouled a couple of pitches back, Buck, and waited for one that he could do something with.
Well, they stayed with hard stuff to Terry Pendleton, and he's now 8 for 12 against Brian Hickerson. That ball is low, away from Pendleton, but he didn't have enough to concern himself with on the inside part of the plate, so he could really dive out and get that pitch.
You can see what David Justice has done this year already. Career highs in home runs and RBIs. We're only talking September 1st. We've got 4.5 weeks of baseball left. Justice, who, of course, he and McGriff back-to-back home runs in that Wednesday game a week ago at Candlestick, the game Swift started. Justice also the 2-run homer last night, in addition to a 2-run double in the Braves' big 5-run third. Fouls it away. Five for 5, 6 for 6, whatever way you slice it. David Justice is white hot. Is hotter than red hot.
Well, he's in a time in his career where he understands where his power is. He knows the pitchers. He's much more patient at the plate and a lot more selective.
Gets under this one. Dave Martinez in center field. And there is one out. Pendleton back to first base. We have a little help tonight from our friends at Blockbuster Video with the Blimp. And appearance by the Blockbuster Video Blimp, part of the '93 maiden tour to the eastern half of the United States. Hey, guys, welcome aboard. Thanks for being part of Wednesday Night Baseball, one of our biggest blockbusters that we have had on this or any other night in the 4 years that we have done baseball. It's been our privilege to bring it to you here on ESPN. 6 games a week, all the big ones. We don't just kind of show up every now and then. Damon Berryhill up, had a big 2-out single last night to make it a 3-1 game in the 4th inning. That said Justice's hit was in the 3rd. I meant the 4th inning last night. By the way, Greg Olson activated today, one of the many activations or call-ups on September 1st. We thought he would play, but his arm's still a little tender, Peter.
He thought he could play. He threw yesterday for quite a long time, but the tendon in his wrist is, I mean, he's braver maybe than the results show, but at least he'll be back and a key guy the last 3 weeks of the season, and he's a very important man to this pitching staff.
Well, as his uniform says, brave. Why wouldn't he be braver? Count is 1-0 to Berryhill. In there first strike, says Joe West. Gary Darling umping at first. Charlie Williams at second. Frank Pulley at third tonight. Brian Hickerson has stayed pretty much within himself. It's a good pop on the pitches.
Well, it looks like he's a little more in control of his emotions now, and he's more relaxed and more deliberate with his pitching motion. That'll get him back down in the good part of the strike zone where he needs to be.
Fouled off just to the right of us.
Berryhill's hitting .302 from the right side, and we mentioned Greg Olson. Generally, Berryhill wouldn't start against left-handed pitchers, but because Olson's been on the disabled list, he's had a chance to get up there and get a few more at-bats. You know, when you come back from an injury like Olson's coming back from, you have a tendency to over-evaluate just where you are physically, and he wants to play and wants to get involved in this pennant race, but Bobby Cox isn't quite sure that he's ready yet.
Pitch missed. Count is 2-2. Hickerson came over to the Giants as a kind of a name that was certainly an unknown in March of '87 when the Giants sent Dan Mann from Gladden to the Minnesota Twins. Gladden, of course, immediately made his presence felt in '87. Grand slams in the World Series helped the Twins win it. Hickerson now, years later, making his presence felt, pitching in a big game here in 1993.
Well, Chris, I think a lot of people are asking, why isn't Jim Deshaies a veteran pitching in this game? But they want Deshaies pitching in a big ballpark. There he is in St. Louis this weekend. I think that's much better suited. They want to get his feet on the ground, let him pitch in that kind of park.
Ground ball to Clayton, to Thompson, to Benzinger, and the Giants turn the 2 and get out of the 3rd. So good defense by the Giants. We have played a pair.
Which might have been outside. Take advantage of the short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium.
Homer there yesterday in a big White Sox win.
Tough to vote for anyone other than him for MVP.
I think that's exactly the way it's going to go.
Top of the order here for the Giants, who left the bases full in the top of the 2nd inning against John Smoltz. But Smoltz got his opposite, the pitcher Brian Hickerson, to strike out. And so we go again. Martinez flew out to right field to lead off the game. A 1 pitch from Smoltz to Davey. Ball broken down and in, and Martinez missed it.
Well, what makes his curveball so tough to pick up is it leaves his hand on the same plane as the fastball. It's not one of those curveballs that goes up out of his hand. It comes straight out of his hand, much the same way as the fastball, and you can't pick it up. There's nothing to tell you it's a breaking pitch. It's got real tight spin on it. You can't see an awful lot of spin.
The thing that makes that breaking ball so interesting is if you sit up in the stands with a half-dozen scouts, 3 of them will tell you one of his curveballs is a slider. But he really says he just throws a big curveball and a tight curveball. Very unusual combination.
That doesn't say much for the scouts.
Whoa, the bat went flying about 120 feet. Martinez gone.
And that's a forkball. He's thrown one other forkballer in the game. That was the ball that David Berryhill blocked in front of home plate, kept it right there to keep Williams at 3rd. But Martinez went after that pitch, disappeared, lost his bat. Take a look at the break on this pitch. Down and away. Martinez slings the bat down in front of the Braves dugout. That's the 4th strikeout for John Smoltz.
Smoltz starts Robbie Thompson off with the strike. Thompson popped his shortstop on a little alley-ooper that Blauser made the catch on the outfield grass.
See, that's the curveball. Now Thompson was pretty confident he was going to get a fastball there. Never saw the spin on the pitch and took a weak hack at the curveball. What a year Robbie Thompson has put together.
Glad to see him make the All-Star team, even though he was injured at the time. He's one of your classic professionals, and I know he gets hurt some, but he comes back to the lineup as soon as he possibly can. 7 straight years he's played 125 or more games. Only Mays and Orlando Cepeda, who by the way is at the ballpark tonight, have done that as member of the San Francisco Giants.
Well, Chris, he's having a great year. I mean, hitting .337. He's got 17 home runs. But he does every little thing in the game well. If you have to have a hitter moved over, you have to have a fly ball. He's the best bunter on the team. I mean, to me, he's one of the best all-around players going. I mean, you talk to people, they just go, hey, the 2 best double play guys in the National League, hands down, are Thompson and Lemke. There's not a better second baseman with an arm going into the outfield than Thompson.
Hits this one pretty well to the outfield. Back goes Gant. Back he goes. It's over his head and off the wall. Thompson to second base with the Giants' 2nd double of the night. That's Robbie's 27th double. And he's aboard with 1 out. That ball got back there on a hurry. And Gant just couldn't catch up to it.
Now, Ronnie Gant didn't get a real good jump on this ball. Look at it jump off the bat of Thompson. He turns to his right and then has to come back to his left, and he drifted on it. He really didn't get back to the wall. If he goes to the wall, he's got a chance to make the play. You see how far he is away from the wall when he jumps. Takes a few more full strides. He gets back to the wall, and then he's got a legitimate shot at catching that. Not an easy play, though. That line drive right at the outfield, that's the one that generally gives him trouble.
Well, all in all, just another ball off the wall for Thompson, and that'll bring up Willie McGee with 1 out, and Smoltz starts him a little bit down. Ball 1. McGee struck out in the first inning. Very quietly put together a nice year. A quiet .313, but yet in years, last couple, where his average fell off. This one, that good play by Berryhill to jump on, of course, has won a pair of National League batting titles. The most interesting was the lame duck batting title that he won in 1990 when he was traded over from the Cards to the Oakland A's late during the pennant race, and his batting average just stuck there for the last month in the National League. Dykstra and the fellows couldn't get to it. He won it in the American League. It's bizarre. He had enough at bats at that time. Count is 2-0 to Willie. Little chopper. Lepke double pumps it over to McGriff. Thompson to third. We told you we're rolling. We gave you tomorrow night's lineup. Saturday, college game day kicks off with Chris and the gang, 11:30 in the morning Eastern time. Then Rice will try and cook Ohio State at 12:30 Eastern. The Residence Inn College scoreboard, which is always in at 7 Eastern. And then Texas against the Golden Buffs of Colorado. That's our Saturday evening game at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 on the West Coast. Pair of games, game day, scoreboard, half times are ready for you this Saturday. And we haven't even begun to talk about Sunday, which is a day that I'm kind of casually interested in.
Now you're getting fired up about that, aren't you?
Well, I'm kind of fired up about this at bat. Whoa! Over the head of Matt Williams, who stares Smoltz down. Look at this. So, I've never seen, Smoltz had to come in and cover home plate. Williams staring him down from about 8 feet away. And we're in a ballpark with a bigger distance between the backdrop, the backstop, and home plate. Thompson might have been able to score, but here, no way.
Watch Matt Williams' reaction. That's right over his helmet. The ball goes back to the wall. Now look at him stare. What in the world was that? Watch the runner at third here. He's thinking about coming home, but the ball caroms right back to home plate, and Berryhill gets to it.
All right, keep this in the back of your mind. Last night, Dave Righetti knocked down David Justice. 2 pitches later, home run. Just keep it in the back of your mind. We've now had Smoltz knock down Matt Williams.
I don't think you do that with Robbie Thompson.
No.
At third base in a situation like that, because the catcher doesn't know where it's going to go.
Doesn't make Matt any more pleased.
No. And it wouldn't hurt any less if it did hit him.
That's the way Williams expects Smoltz to pitch to him, down and away. So in addition to the ball being up and in and he had to get out of the way, he's not expecting them to work him like that at all tonight, and talking with him before the game.
That's why he was so late getting out of there.
Two-0 the count.
That's what happens after a pitch like that. As tough as you might be, and Matt Williams is as tough as anyone, very difficult to hang in and go down and get that curveball after you've had a pitch up around your helmet.
Two-one pitch. Off-speed pitch drilled to left field. Back goes Gant. Back he goes. This one he makes the catch against the wall. Oh, Williams hit that one on a rope. But that time Gant got a good jump on the ball, robbed Williams of an extra base hit, and robbed the Giants of a lead. In 3 at-bats, the Giants have already stranded 4.
We move to the bottom of the third inning. Still scoreless here in Atlanta. That's Ronnie Gant sitting on the Braves bench. This is Gant in left field. Off the bat of Matt Williams. He crashes into the wall, catches Matt Williams' line drive, and it's been a frustrating series for the Giants. What do we have to do to score here in Atlanta?
Well, Buck, last night, first 3 innings, they had a leadoff hitter on in each inning. They had 4 base runners in that time, and the third inning was ended by a terrific David Justice catch. Same sort of frustration tonight.
Already they've stranded 4 base runners. Smoltz doesn't give you that many opportunities to score off them.
Bottom of the third inning. Mark Lemke, John Smoltz, Otis Nixon.
Those are the sort of balls that when the Giants were 41 games above 500, they would fall in. Swinging at the first pitch is Lemke. Sails it to center field. Dave Martinez is there. 1 pitch, 1 out for Brian Hickerson here in the third. But the ball Lemke hit last night, Peter, the 2-out double to drive in 2 runs to end that 5-run 4th inning. That was smoked.
It was hit very hard, but it was also typical of what happens when a team hits a bad spot. There was a little miscommunication. Billy Swift was pitching one way. David Martinez was playing another way. And it's just one of those things that happens when you're in a little bit of a slump. We call it a slump at 10 games over 500 since the All-Star break.
I know. Most teams would kill to be in that sort of a slump.
Same kind of slump John Olerud's in right now. He's hitting 382.
Yeah, what's the matter with him? I wanted to ask you that, Buck.
We knew he'd never hit.
Smoltz a 175 hitter on the year. And the count is 1-1. Misses. Count is 2-1.
You know, we've been talking so much about Smoltz tonight. Let's don't forget what this guy's done so far. This is a very important game for the Giants. Swift got beat last night. Game 2 of a 3-game set. You've lost 4 straight to the Braves. You need to slow them down a bit.
There was some heat. Remember, Smoltz struck out Hickerson with the bases loaded. So Hickerson said, hey, here's my heater. Second base, Thompson, Benzinger, 2 down in the Atlanta third. Now the Giants, of course, got off to the jackrabbit start. Atlanta below 500 for the month of April. So that was a difference between these clubs that the Giants are still cashing in on. Made the Giants a game better. June and July, well, June they were better. July about the same. August, I mean 15-11, that's their worst month. The people talking about that they're not holding on and everything. It's just that their worst month happens to coincide with these 4 games and now the 6-game series against the Braves.
And the way the Braves have come on the last 2 years obviously weighs on the Giants' mind. But as Barry Bonds was saying today, if we can get 1 game, stop the bleeding, we don't have to worry about these guys the whole rest of the month of September.
Otis Nixon takes a fastball up and outside, ball 1. And I would add that on paper coming in, this would be the game that they figured probably won't get. They had their 2 aces, Swift yesterday, Burkett tomorrow. And they would have put them up against Atlanta's pitchers tonight. Hickerson, they hope Smoltz would be off. On paper, if they were hoping to get 2 of 3, this might be the one that you don't get. But that's why they don't play baseball games on paper.
Now, paper's really out the window in September. You don't know what you're going to get from people. People react differently in a pennant race. A tendency to tense up, you know. Giants are 3.5 up, looking around saying, boy, we've had a great year. Think we might let this thing get away from us?
Count is 2-0. Ripped to right field. Coming on is McGee. Squeezes it. And the Braves are gone. We've played 3. There's no score. When we come back, that man, Barry Bonds, will lead it off for the Giants. Staff from his Octobers in the past. No score in the game. After the Giants lost last night, we asked him, what did he say to the guys?
Just stop worrying. I mean, we're not trying to catch them. They're trying to catch us, and I think that, you know, sometimes the atmosphere I felt on our team was that we're trying to catch them type of attitude, and I was like, you know, something's wrong with this pitcher. I don't care, you know, if we win 1 game here, 3 games in a month is a lot of games to catch up. If we win the next 2, you know, if I had a bet on somebody, I'd bet we'd win the whole thing from that point on. But even if we lose 2, you still got to realize 1 game in a whole month, depending on somebody else's, is a lot of games, especially as long as you can try and knock the wind out of them, at least for the 3 games. Give them what you got, at least.
Well, Chris, he walked out of the bus last night. It was very quiet. He just walked out of the bus and yelled, hey, we're in first place.
You can't forget that. They played too hard to forget that. That's why you build those big cushions.
And he's the biggest reason why they are in first place. We begin the 4th inning. Smoltz starts him on a breaking ball down and in. Bonds swings and misses 0-1.
Well, Buck, you remember very well in 1984. Tigers started out 35-5. The Blue Jays had a much better record from June 1st on, but 35-5 is well earned.
He just couldn't make up that ground.
Smoltz is ahead of him 0-2.
Games in September take on a much larger perspective, but you get off to a fast start in April and you don't have to worry about September.
Now this is a matchup, Smoltz against Bonds, that we have seen in October. So Barry Bonds has become, I hate to use the word enemy, I only use it in a friendly sense for the fans, but they've rooted against Bonds now for 3 years, twice in October when he was with the Pirates, and now in Atlanta, the team that the Braves are trying to beat. So he's become the common thread in the Braves' charge these 3 years.
And he admits right now he's a little tired. He's only missed 3 games in this very hot summer. And he's dragging a little bit, but he figures once it gets by Labor Day, he'll be fine.
Count is now full after Smoltz was ahead in the count. Bonds leading off the 4th inning. Benzinger and Clayton to follow. No score. The Giants have stranded 4, including the bases loaded in the 2nd inning. He'll do it again. You know, Barry is also very well aware of the other league's home run race.
Well, he's very upset today to know that Griffey got his 40.
That's what I mean. But he had his 38 to take the lead over everyone, and Griffey had 2 to make it 39. He said, wait a minute, it's the other league. Dusty Baker's telling him, don't worry about it. And you work Bonds carefully, whether he leads off, whether he comes up with guys aboard, and Bonds works his way aboard with a base on balls.
Well, here's a situation where Bonds is really valuable. 22 stolen bases in 31 attempts, and he steals key bases.
His 103rd walk of the year on September 1st.
Well, what you were saying, Buck, he likes hitting lower in the order because he wants the run now. He says, you know, if you're batting 3rd, you can't take the bat out of the cleanup hitter. The one problem he's had, he thinks he's had 10 or 12 stolen bases. People will foul him off, swing the bat, but he can run a lot more, and he says he's going to run a lot more in the month of September, at least until Will Clark gets back.
Rip, knocked down by McGriff. He'll make the play himself on Benzinger. Bonds into second base. That was a shot by Benzinger, who continues to swing a hot bat, but right at McGriff.
Fred McGriff was out early working with Jimmy Williams, the 3rd base coach of the Braves, on this particular play. Coming off the base, getting yourself into a fielding position. You can see the hot shot hit to his right. He gloves it, sizes up the situation, goes over to the bag and retires Benzinger. Jimmy Williams is a stickler for making sure everybody is well prepared. He had McGriff out here about 4 o'clock going over fielding position at first.
Well, they try to work the sneak play, and Blauser sneaking in behind Bonds. Smoltz stepped off the rubber, chose not to throw. Oh, look at McGriff make the play with that short hop play at first base. Eddie Gallivan, Canadians announcer, a long time, would have described it a rapier-like glove hand. Clayton, who looked overmatched in his first at-bat against Smoltz, swings and misses for strike 1.
Well, these are the guys that September's tough on. Going through a pennant race as an everyday player for the first time, and you have a tendency to press a lot. Bonds has been through it a lot before, and he knows you take every game just like you did in April.
Foul at Mac.
Clayton's had a fine season, both at the plate and in the field. You look at his RBIs, 62 RBIs, very good production for a shortstop.
But you look, he's a young kid, bats a little bit slow. You look at how the Braves play. Lemke's playing him like a left-handed pull hitter. They're playing Blauser way over by second base. They know it's September. He's a little bit tired. He's tending to just try to push the ball over there on the right side now.
Pitches up top. You know, you talk about the late games are so much important. Think about Smoltz in postseason. He's never lost. Made 9 starts, 5-0, 4-0 decisions. He knows when the heat is on. Count is 1-2 to Clayton. Blauser cheating in on Bonds, then back to position at short. Royce pokes this one. Foul. Good chase by Justice. He won't get it. Likable young man, Royce Clayton. We call him Royce Aroni Clayton, the San Francisco treat. He had a big smile on his face yesterday. He says, you know what, out in the Bay Area, that one stuck. He says they like that. Try and localize these things when you can, you know. Kind of like localizing pain. 1-2 pitch, foul back off the screen.
Peter, you pointed out how the Braves are playing him defensively, and it's important to point out how Smoltz is pitching to him. He's staying hard with the fastball, and when he does throw a breaking pitch, it's way away. It's something that he can't pull. There you see the right side of the infield. That's just significant positioning. McGriff way off the line at first. Lemke straight away at second. Smoltz has to make sure he doesn't give Clayton an off-speed breaking ball, something that he can get to and pull, and really cross up the defense. Just can't get around on that fastball. The Braves are very good at defending the opponent's hitters, but you have to have pitchers that can execute a plan.
That's what most teams in the National League will tell you, that no one does more with their positioning than the Braves. They work very hard. Jimmy Williams, Leo Mazzoni, but they've got 4 starting pitchers who execute very well.
A lot of pitches here with just 1 out in the 4th inning. Outside, Clayton did not go around, says Gary Darling at first base. So the count is 2-2.
Clayton's having a pretty good at bat. We're talking about Smoltz making good pitches on him, and he's fouling off some tough pitches and then laying off this breaking ball. With 2 strikes, very difficult to check your swing. Maryhill asks for the appeal, but it's denied by Gary Darling.
That time, Blauser inched towards second, wasn't there, and Smoltz stepped off the rubber, didn't throw.
Even though you don't make a throw there, what it does is it shortens up Bonds should there be a base hit. So now he's thinking, well, I can't get too far off here.
Giants have had base runners in scoring position in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, but don't have anything to show for it yet. We are no score, 1 out. Top of the 4th inning. Giants bases loaded in the 2nd. Runner on 3rd in the 3rd. Now Bonds on 2nd base here in the 4th. There you have it in a nutshell. Clayton fouls it back.
Good at bat. He's taken everything Smoltz has given him, taken the close pitches, fouled off the good fastball. Bonds likes the at bat.
Is that a golf applause there? A little.
Thinks he's doing a good job. You know, Bonds has a different signal for every hitter in his lineup as far as the adjustments that hitter needs to make. So everybody's got a little set of signs that Bobby Bonds has personalized.
9th pitch from Smoltz to Clayton. Get the butterfly net out. A dive would have had it, Buck.
Yeah, but it's a long way down there.
Well, it's all right. You're a catcher. You're tough.
I'm a former catcher.
You're still tough.
It's been a long inning for John Smoltz because of Clayton's at bat.
Bonds the runner at 2nd base. Count still 2-2. Clayton will foul this one. This may be in play. Berryhill, Pendleton over. Pendleton makes the play. 2 out. Well, we got you set for Thursday. We got you set for Saturday. And are you ready for some football? We are. Tom and Joe and Morton, all the gang, and some other guy who wears purple jackets. Sunday at noon Eastern Time. NFL Game Day. You won't get better pregame coverage anywhere. For 1 hour from noon up to kickoff at 1, and then prime time, 7 Eastern Time. Robin and Tommy and some guy with a purple coat. We're fired up. Football returns this weekend. Pennant race, football, everything going. And Jeff Reed's going to get an intentional pass for the second time tonight. And so for the second time tonight, the pitcher, Brian Hickerson, will be up with a chance to help his cause. Last night, I mean, the crowd is pretty quiet, at least for here. They come to life on any play. First three innings last night when Swift mowed them down, Peter, 9 up, 9 down, it was really quiet. But then as soon as the Braves bats got going, Justice made the catch, and then the bats got going, it was like a different planet.
It really was. Well, there's so much anticipation. I think they're expecting so much that anything less than, give me that 9-0 lead, the first 2 innings. If you don't get that, they tend to worry a little bit.
Now, this is a tense pennant game, although we do have, and both managers very quick to point out, lots of baseball to go over 4 weeks. So Hickerson with runners at first and second, up with 2 outs. And there was a fastball that was in the mid of Berryhill before Hickerson swung. Strike 1. Bonds and Reed lead off second and first respectively. No score, top of the 4th. Oh, a bunt. This might get past Smoltz and be trouble. The flip in time. Good idea by Hickerson, and he executed it perfectly. But McGriff to Smoltz just nipped the pitcher. And the Giants strand 2 more.
Jimmy Williams' work with Fred McGriff this afternoon pays big dividends. Look at this little subtle toss to Smoltz. He gets the bag. Gary Darling rings him up.
No score, bottom of the 4th, and there's some smelling salts for John Smoltz. Say that 5 times fast. Some smelling salts.
Well, this is why he needed his smelling salts. He had to get over to first base on the great bunt by Hickerson. And look at McGriff. Shovel the ball to Smoltz. He kicks the bag with his right foot just ahead of Hickerson. Good idea by the Giants pitcher Hickerson trying to get the bunt down, but a fine defensive play by both Smoltz and McGriff.
Well, Buck, the coordination that takes to get his foot onto the bag at full speed with that flip. Smoltz is a great athlete. That's the one thing about all those Braves starters.
He's a great athlete that's tired right now. He's getting some oxygen on the bench. Clayton made him work hard during that at bat, and then he had to really hustle over to first base on that bunt attempt. But I can't tell you that today it was a situation where Jimmy Williams had Fred McGriff out there practicing that very play. And it paid off.
Sure
McGriff
did.
made a good defensive play earlier in the game, and then on that little shovel toss to Smoltz, they made it out. And the Giants got to be wondering, what in the world do we have to do to score against these guys?
These are the sort of situations that the ball just bled through. McGriff would fumble it before. And Dusty Baker knows it's a 6-month season, 162 games, that you're not going to get all those lucky little hops every time. You just wants 1 or 2. Smoltz through 4 innings, guys, has thrown 70 pitches. So we may see the Braves bullpen a little earlier tonight, although Smoltz certainly is a workhorse. And, oh, by the way, he hasn't allowed a run yet. No score, bottom of the 4th. Blauser, Gant, McGriff, 2-3-4 coming up with the Braves as you check out the scores around the majors. Blauser swinging at the first pitch. Royce Clayton out, makes the call, calls off Barry Bonds, and there is 1 out. Ron Gant coming up, and he's had a couple of plays out of left field, one that he could not get to. A double by Robbie Thompson, but the big one, the one he gets to rob Matt Williams and to keep Thompson from scoring in the 3rd inning. So Gant has done it with the glove, as Justice did last night, then delivered at the plate. Do we see the same from Gant? Hickerson starts him off with a ball. Ron Gant from Victoria, Texas, came up as a third baseman. But he has now found a home for sure in left field. You forget that Gant was the one of all the big young stars, the Justices, that was, for him, being a 30-30 guy, was kind of slumping for almost a year, over 2 seasons. He was the one rumored to go if they got a Bonds or someone else. But they've stuck with it, and he's rewarded him with a fine season.
He really has. He works so hard to try to keep his strike zone intact so he doesn't start chasing a lot of bad pitches.
Oh, Atlanta. Lots of little feet here in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. We're happy you could join us for the Giants and the Braves. No score here in the bottom of the 4th on Wednesday Night Baseball. Chris Berman, Buck Martinez, and Peter Gammons with you. Gary Miller in the studio. We've got you covered. Gant will step out.
We mentioned Smoltz and his 70 pitches through this point of the ball game. Hickerson, Dusty Baker's got to be thrilled with what he's gotten from Hickerson so far. He has really held the Braves in check.
A shot that's going to be foul down the left field line, so the count remains at 1-2, and Reed will go out and have a word with Hickerson. Hickerson's pitched 49 pitches, Buck.
Jeff Reed out to talk. You can see just one hit through 3 1/3. Walked a batter, struck out a batter, but he's kept the Braves hitters off stride, changing speeds. Early on, he established that he could throw that fastball at the knees away from the hitters. That's Dick Cole, the pitching coach. It's really hoping for a good start. You know, you talk about Swift and Burkett starting game 1 and 3 of this series, and those are the guys you expect to be effective. Good curveball.
Full Gant pops it up behind second base. Thompson there. So a couple of pop-ups to start the 4th inning, and McGriff coming up.
Watch what Hickerson does with his curveball. He goes back door with the slow curve, and you can see that Gant was out on his front foot. Swings at it with one hand and pops it up to second base. That's Bill Swift, the starter in last night's game for the Giants.
Well, he was upbeat, Peter, after this afternoon when we spoke with him. I know you spoke with him at length, but he said, well, I got my 2 bad starts out of the way. Now I can get going.
He's very tired of hearing how he always breaks down. He said, you know, he still feels very good. He did not feel good in San Francisco. Last night he had pretty good stuff.
Yeah, that's the one thing Bobby Cox said before tonight's game, that he was really impressed with the way Swift threw.
Except for the pitch to Lemke, which was up. The other 2 we thought were good pitches. The one that Berryhill got on him, and the one that Justice, his 2-run double. So Swift and the Giants anxious tonight, watching Hickerson do a good job. Count is 0-1 to McGriff. Up top, 1-1. After Barry Bonds with 39 home runs, numbers 2, 3, 4 in the home run race are right here in the Braves lineup. David Justice, Crime Dog, and Ronnie Gant. It is possible that the Braves this year could have 340 home run hitters. It's possible.
Possible. They had it back in '73 with Evans, Darrell Evans, and Davey Johnson and Henry Aaron.
Davey Johnson out homering Henry Aaron and Darrell Evans. What a difference he has made, not only himself, but his Brave teammates.
Well, it was the right move at the right time to give them a lift. The John Schuerholz has a history of this. Alejandro Pena 2 years ago, Jeff Reardon last year. 2 very important acquisitions at just the right time. In Reardon's case, probably as much psychological as anything else, but it was an important move.
Atlanta, almost you would expect them to make another move. What's this going on, Buck?
Well, there's a bit of a disagreement going on right now as to what they want to do with Fred McGriff. Hickerson shook off a couple signs, and then Reed came out to the mound. This is very dangerous. One thing you don't want a pitcher to do is throw a pitch that he's not really confident in. All a catcher can do is try to coax him into a particular pitch, but if he doesn't want to throw it, you don't want to call it.
Off-speed pitch, missed, down and in. Count is 2-2.
If you ever get into that scenario, calling for a pitch that the pitcher's not sure of, he won't throw it effectively. He'll have some doubts as he lets it go out of his hand.
Count is full, 3-2. The last thing you want, Buck, is a domestic squabble on the mound.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you're talking.
Especially in front of 46,000 people. I mean, do it in the privacy of your own home, will you please?
But you have to talk, believe me.
3-2 pitch, 2 out. Inside, McGriff is aboard. Pendleton coming up.
Well, now Hickerson's going to take a long walk and regroup now. I think he lost his concentration after they had that discussion on the mound. He made a couple good pitches with the breaking ball, but lost McGriff on the fastball. So now he has to face the switch hitter in Terry Pendleton. You can see he's talking to himself.
He's also worked up a pretty good lather on a very humid night here in Atlanta. Pendleton, who singled in the second inning for the lone Brave, hit up his career mark against Hickerson to 8 for 12. McGriff, the runner, with 2 out, no score, bottom 4. Middle game of a 3-game set. Bounce past Reed. McGriff up to second base easily.
Hickerson's lost his concentration. This is as bad a pitch as he's thrown all night long. He gets on top of it and throws it in the dirt. Really not a bad pitch for Reed to get. He just doesn't get over and blocks. Hickerson's going to have to regroup himself right now. Block out the McGriff at bat totally. Worry about Pendleton. And he's got a base open now. Pendleton wears him out, and he still has a base open with 2 outs.
Took something off it. Pendleton swung through it, 1-1.
Well, Pendleton got a hit last time up on a pitch that was out of the strike zone, off the plate, away from him. Then a left-handed batter on deck in David Justice.
Left-handed batter who has been hitting home runs all week. The Braves with their first base runner in scoring position tonight. The Giants have not cashed in. The Braves may do it. Pendleton to right field. Here comes McGriff around third. He'll score. So that's the difference in the game. An opportunity. The Braves have cashed in. Pendleton does the job against Hickerson again. 1-0 Atlanta.
Terry Pendleton now has 9 hits against Eric Hickerson. And I'm really surprised they opted to pitch to him with a base open. That's the pitching coach, Dick Cole, showing his frustration. Look at Jeff Reed set up down the middle, and another pitch out over the plate. Pendleton just rips it into right field. His second hit tonight off Brian Hickerson.
All the more reason why we saw Hickerson walk off the mound, knowing that now, instead of leading off an inning against Pendleton, who has ripped him, now he had to do it with a man on. And maybe while he still was lacking the concentration, the wild pitch became a factor, and that allowed the run to score.
Yeah, they really had a problem there in that Fred McGriff at bat.
Well, here come the fans with the war chant. Pendleton, the runner at first base, 2 out. Count 1-0 to David Justice. Gets under it a little bit. Dave Martinez drifts over to right center and makes the catch. And Justice is gone. But the Braves have cashed in their first opportunity, have a 1-0 lead. Top of the 5th inning, Brian Hickerson has really outpitched John Smoltz, but he's upset because he's down 1-0, Buck.
Yeah, he made a bad pitch to Terry Pendleton after he lost Fred McGriff on a 3-2 fastball off the plate. He is well aware how well Terry Pendleton hits him. And with 2 outs, he walked Fred McGriff, and that allowed Pendleton to come to the plate.
And it's so hard to just say, well, go walk Pendleton, because Justice was hitting .301 against left-handers and has been going so well the other way in situational hitting opportunities.
Well, so now the Giants are in a position which they've become accustomed to in this 10-on-10 with the Braves. They're behind. Dave Martinez swings at the first pitch and fouls it off. Martinez leading off for the 3rd time in the game. He's flown out to right and struck out. Pitches up top. Smoltz thus far tonight. He's had his oxygen and his smelling Smoltz. 4 walks, 4 Ks, 2 hits, but the key, no runs.
Well, he's thrown a lot of pitches through 4 innings, 72 after that last one. One thing about the Braves pitchers, they throw a lot of innings, but generally they don't throw too many pitches.
Good breaking ball by Smoltz. It's 1-2. There's Greg Maddux, who was the winner last night in the 8-2 Brave win. He is really coming on in the second half. They still do have a chance to have 3 20-game winners, an outside chance. And Chopper, Smoltz has to pounce on. That's a tough throw with the runner running right up the line, but he makes the play to McGriff. So Smoltz and McGriff have played some good defense tonight. Always playing the good DR, Gary Miller.
Chris, Budweiser takes us to Yankee Stadium. Jack McDowell, after his 21st win, had allowed just a hit to the leadoff man. Then in the 5th, after Thomas had given him a lead with a home run, Mike Stanley continues his amazing season. His 23rd home run. He had just 24 career home runs coming into this year. It's tied at 1. Sox batting in the 6th. Back to you.
You talk about a guy having a great year. Mike Stanley. Nobody having a great year who's come from, quote, nowhere than Mike Stanley. Nobody doing it better this year.
And we wouldn't be hearing about him if they had just signed Terry Steinbach, who they offered so much money to. It's a great story.
Robbie Thompson up, Giants' hottest hitter. Doubled off the left field wall in the 3rd, was stranded at 3rd. In the 1st inning, he popped up to shortstop. Fastball, little looper to center field, coming on is Nixon. He's there, and there's 2 outs. We told you about Thursday. We told you about Saturday. We've told you about Sunday. We've got a new thing going for you Monday night. It's Prime Monday from 7:30 Eastern right up until kickoff time on Monday Night Football at 9 Eastern time. Mike Tirico, Joe Theismann, Chris Mortensen, Craig James. Occasionally I'll be on. Andrea Kramer. Cast of thousands. Thousands. And this Monday night game, what a good one that is. Cowboys at the Redskins. I'll be at RFK, actually. I'm looking forward to that. Going from one great venue here to studio on Sunday. Speaking of great venues in Bristol, Connecticut. And on to RFK on Monday. I know, somebody has to do it.
You have a great job.
Thank you. I resemble that remark. Willie McGee, little chopper foul. I wouldn't trade it with any job in the world. I'm very, very lucky. And I will never forget that. It's a privilege to do it. As we look at the scores around the league, McGee 0 for 2 tonight. And Smoltz quickly ahead of him, 0-2. But, you know, that John Smoltz, even though he's 5-2 after the All-Star break as opposed to 8-7 before when he was an All-Star, his ERA is up a run, 4.33 after the break as opposed to close to 3 beforehand. McGee rips this one to right center field. It'll go for extra bases. A one-hopper off the wall. McGee to second will stop. And the Giants have their 3rd double tonight. Now, he told you that he's been tagged a little bit more after the break. And McGee just showed you that sometimes the pitches are out over the plate, Buck.
Let's take a look at where they try to go with his breaking ball. You can see it stayed up about mid-thigh high, and he rips it up the alley into right center. Justice does a good job to play the carom barehanded, gets it back to the infield. But McGee has a 2-out double, and he set the table for Matt Williams.
Buck, that pitch is exactly what Leo Mazzoni and Bobby Cox have been talking to Smoltz about. Being too careful with that, with his curveball. He's been leaving them out over the plate rather than finishing off. Even if it goes into the dirt, let him swing at it.
So Smoltz will deal to Matt Williams. Matt has hit him hard tonight. A double down the left field line and a shot that Gant robbed him of another double against the wall. Smoltz starts him off with strike one.
Well, Smoltz busted Williams inside with a fastball, sailed it over his head, and then Matt hung in there with 2 strikes and ripped the liner. There's another breaking ball.
And down and outside, like we said that he would attempt to pitch him, except for the one that dusted him.
Well, Matt is so strong inside on that fastball. Smoltz wants to stay down and away from him. Makes a good pitch with that curveball. He just gets a piece of it. You know, now's a situation here, 0-2, where Smoltz can run the fastball once again off the plate inside. But it's got to be inside. You don't want to miss over the plate.
Because Matt will chase that fastball up and out of the strike zone in this situation.
McGee at second base, the 5th runner the Giants have had in scoring position. The Braves have only had one, but he scored. Outside.
And away. At this point in the ball game, with his pitch count around 75, Smoltz might not be that confident of his control in there. So instead of chancing a fastball that moves out over the plate, he's going to stay away from it, it appears. Wheels are spinning. Where does he go next?
Nothing Braves. Top of the 5th, 2 out. Up top, missed for a ball. 2-2. McGee at second base. Barry Bonds looming large in the on-deck circle.
Now Matt Williams is pretty sure he's going to get a breaking ball from John Smoltz here. Let's see if he can go out there and get it. Look at Barry Hill studying Williams, making sure he's not looking at his signs.
Smoltz thought he had it. Joe West said he did not, and now 2-2.
Here's that little slider. Williams thinks outside, sees it well, and holds up on it.
Little low. Little low. Counts 3-2. Now, breaking ball or fastball?
I think he'll still go with the breaking ball, even though Bonds is on base, because he has so much confidence in it. And he doesn't want to give in to Matt Williams with the fastball.
3-2 pitches ripped to left field. Gant going back. It's off the wall. McGee will score. The throw at second. Out, but the run scores. McGee scored before the play at second base, and we're tied at 1. Good strong relay by Gant to get Williams bidding for his second double of the night. But Williams delivered against Smoltz, and we're knotted.
Bottom of the 5th inning, Matt Williams double ties it up. Take a look at the 3-2 pitch from Smoltz. It's a breaking ball, even with Bonds on deck. And he rips it down into the corner. Ronnie Gant plays the carom very well, delivers a strong throw, but watch the tag at second. Charlie Williams, the umpire, is right there in great position, but the tag is late.
Safe.
Williams indicates safe, but he's called out by Charlie Williams, and he can't believe it. Good strong throw. You can see he said, Charlie, Charlie, but Williams had great position. The play was right there. He saw it, but just didn't read that Williams was safe.
7-8-9 for the Braves in a tie game. 1-1. Berryhill, Lemke, and Smoltz. Matt Williams has now hit 3 ropes off John Smoltz. Over 1,000 feet of line drives in his 3 at-bats, yet he only ended up on base once. A double, the one Gant robbed him on, and then the good throw by Gant and what looked to be a late tag, but still a single and an RBI. RBI number 86 for Williams.
But a very big call with Barry Bonds on deck.
Yes, a huge call. Huge.
Well, Charlie Williams doesn't have the advantage of instant replay and slow motion cameras. He's got to call it with a split-second time to decide safe or out. You can't argue with his positioning. He was right on top of the bag at second.
1-1 pitch to Barry Hill. Hickerson has looked good. Just giving up the 2 hits, and Barry Hill behind in the count against Hickerson, 1-2.
You know, we've heard all the comments about players saying, well, the Giants are in first place and we should remember that. Well, the Giants played themselves to 41 games over 500, and you don't do that just by having a hot streak here or there. That's consistent good baseball throughout the season.
Perfect positioning by Clayton. The throw over to Benzinger, and Barry Hill is gone. Here's what the ump had to see in defense of Charlie Williams. This is real speed. Gant makes a real good throw to Lepke. And there's the call by Charlie.
And Charlie Williams had perfect position. He was standing still on one knee, looking right at the play in front of him. You can't argue with a thing he did.
Except the end, if you're a Giant fan. But hey, the umpires get most everything right on the money. I think they take a lot more heat than is deserved. I mean, a lot of it's just part of the game. I understand.
Well, I think the reason you don't see an argument from Dusty Baker is that, hey, Charlie hustled and got himself in a position. It's when umpires don't hustle and don't get in position that you get the arguments.
Lepke skies it out of the outfield grass and short right. Thompson is there, and there are 2 outs. My first-year job done by Dusty Baker in taking over for Roger Craig. Dusty has remained very close to the players as he was when he was the batting coach under Roger, but yet has the feeling of authority. He's a good listener. He's done a good job with a lot of potential clashing of egos, and you haven't seen that happen. Smoltz swings and misses on the pitch for Hickerson, but let me finish this thought here. The Giant team that we are watching, obviously Peter McGowan and company, bring in Barry Bonds and save the team from moving out. But a lot of the team that you're seeing out here, not only the development and the draft picks, you look around, you get #1 draft pick of Williams and Clayton and Thompson and normally Clark at first base. A trade for Kevin Mitchell that brought Swift and Jackson and Burba. That the regime of Al Rosen and Roger Craig, Bob Lurie, they knew what they were doing. The results are in when they're gone, but they knew what they were doing. Now you're seeing some of the hard work.
Well, the next year will be more the transitional year. I mean, it's no secret Will Clark is not going to be with the Giants next year. He's a free agent, and he's not going to come back. I mean, he's going to move on elsewhere. That's when the transition will start. And I think it'll be more difficult for Dusty down the line, but still, he has done a sensational job with his team.
1-2 pitch misses.
Well, you know, the Will Clark situation is, I don't know if the Giants can afford to sign him.
I don't know that I would be that quick, although, Peter, it does add up. But, I mean, we just threw that out there, and a lot of people have heard that for the first time. Wait a minute, Will Clark, the guy that was supposed to be...
He will not be back.
I don't think so. It doesn't add up that way right now.
Well, they've talked to possibly the top Benzinger play first. They may look for, you know, someone else with a little bit more power, but the contract thing, it's just too much money in that market to try to have. They want to sign Robbie Thompson and Matt Williams.
Hickerson has struck out Smoltz, and a 1-2-3 inning for Brian Hickerson. It's a 1-1 game. Well, you thought maybe with Smoltz and Hickerson you'd have some hitting tonight, but not the case. A 1-1 game between the Giants and the Braves in the top of the 6th inning as we get our shots tonight from the Blockbuster Video Blimp. I want to thank them for providing us with beautiful shots of Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. And tonight has been the 10th pennant game. Barry Bonds to lead it off for the Giants. And while we wait for John Smoltz, who is laid out to the mound to start his warm-ups, our Sunday Night Baseball continues with John and Joe. Juan going Gonzalez. What a sweet swing he has. Can the Rangers put the heat on the Chicago White Sox? We'll see if Kirby and the gang, accustomed to playing pennant race ball at this time of the year, can play spoiler. Texas at Minnesota. 8 Eastern, 5 on the West Coast. 2 o'clock in Hawaii. Otherwise, check your local listings. Now, as Barry Bonds comes up to start it off. Smoltz was late coming out of the dugout, probably in the clubhouse.
Yeah, he might have had to change a sweatshirt or an undershirt. Now he's got a ball on him out. He wanted a different baseball.
So he changed the shirt, changed the ball, changed the cleats. Can Barry Bonds change the score? Oh, he wanted to hack at that first one and fouled it back. That was just a thought, figuring Smoltz a little out and behind, not really quite warm. Let's see if he just kind of puts one over the plate.
He's very popular in this town, as we can see.
Well, you think of all the dramatic. I'm not only talking about, like we saw the graphic on Matt Williams and how many of his home runs have come late when the team's been behind or tied. Think of all the key home runs Bonds has had. His first at bat ever at Candlestick against Florida, gone. First at bat in the Atlanta series in April off Maddox at Candlestick, gone. The back-to-back homers with Williams in the extra inning at the Chicago a couple weeks ago. The second time they did that in the game. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But he certainly has a sense of the theatrics as he waits for a new bat.
Well, he's always had it. I mean, 2 years ago when the Cardinals made the great run at the Pirates, and he hit the dramatic 7th inning home run to tie. Then he hit the home run off Lee Smith to win. I mean, he's just always been that kind of player. He likes, like Ricky Henderson, he likes going out there and having everyone say, all right, I want to get this guy. And then he just go out and say, all right, I'll show you I'm the best.
Now you got all the top 4 guys right here in the yard. Bonds, Justice, Gannon, McGriff. Count is 1-2 to Barry. Flew out to left field, was walked, stranded at second base. That's his line tonight. Little number that's foul.
You know, you saw the home run leaders, and you don't see too many home run leaders choke up on the bat as much as Barry Bonds. He has great bat control. I asked him why he choked up. He said, every time my dad used to send us kids bats, they were so big we had to choke up.
Well, Bobby certainly had some big-time bats. Bobby hit 332 home runs in his career with the Giants and others. And I just wonder, had the Giants never traded him to the Yankees for Bobby Mercer, and then had he not moved around to many other stops, he was an excellent player. I wonder if he could have been one of the all-time greats. I just wonder.
He could hit for power. He hit leadoff. He could steal bases. He had great coverage in the outfield. Threw well. He could do so many things for you. He has done a marvelous job with this team this year as a hitting instructor.
3-2 pitch from Smoltz to Barry Bonds. We'll do it again.
It's interesting. All night long, Barry Bonds has been looking for breaking ball. He's sitting on Smoltz's breaking ball, and he will do that from time to time against pitchers that have a good breaking ball, but he's not even thinking about really jumping out at that fastball.
Oh, he thought it was ball 4. Joe West called strike 3.
Look at the concentration. He's thinking breaking ball, so he really looks at it closely. And he felt that it was low. He was ready to toss the bat aside before Joe West rings him up. And he can't believe it.
There's the same type pitch right there to Benzinger, strike 1.
He's going to work on that NBA smirk, you know, every foul of the NBA. He doesn't quite got it down yet, but...
To a fastball from Smoltz. And he'll have another crack at it. 1 out in the 6th inning, 1-1 game. You know, we mentioned the name Lee Smith a moment ago on the home run that Bonds hit. There was nobody happier than the development. Well, the Yankees are very happy that they got Lee Arthur Smith for their bullpen problems, even though he's not been the imposing figure this year that he's been in the past. But swung on and missed. Pair of strikeouts. What I started to say was the Giants go from here to St. Louis, and they have 3. They have 4 against St. Louis at Candlestick. St. Louis plays this team very tough. They're always one-run games, but now Lee Smith won't be there. At least 4 players mentioned that to me in the locker room.
I'm sure it's a very important factor. Then the Cardinals are in a transitional stage. They're not playing very well. They're looking ahead to next year. They're going to look at guys like Mike Perez. But with Steve Farr coming down with a bad elbow, that was a very big pickup that Gene Michael made. Matter of fact, look what Gene Michael's done. He's picked Assemacher and Lee Smith, and he also blocked 40-something pitchers and prevented the Toronto Blue Jays from getting a starting pitcher. So he may be the executive of the year if they can ever get Abbott and Perez to start to win.
Bryce Clayton hits the ball to center field. Otis Nixon is there, and he makes the catch. We've played 5.5 in Atlanta. It's 1-1. Barry Bonds thought he should have been aboard. Bottom of the 6th inning in Atlanta. The Giants and Braves in a classic pennant-type game. 1-1. And Terry Pendleton has been the only one at the plate that has solved Brian Hickerson. He's 2 for 2, including the ribby. The rest of the team is 0 for. He's due up 5th this inning as the Braves send the top of their order up. Nixon, Blauser, and Gant. And Brian Hickerson, guys, has delivered some big-time innings tonight.
Sure has. Held the Atlanta Braves hitters in check so far through 5 innings. Just 1 run on those 2 hits by Pendleton. And I bet you Hickerson's rethinking that pitch to Pendleton because he had a base open at the time with 2 outs and Dave Justice on deck.
Otis Nixon has flown out twice to the outfield, but obviously Otis with the speed. And Matt Williams inching in on the infield grass at third base. There's Matt on the grass. There's the bunt, but he pushes it first base side and foul.
Pitcher warming up.
Kevin Rogers, the left-handed pitcher who impressed Dusty Baker so much in March. And he has the utmost confidence in him as his lefty setup man, along with Jackson, the righty, and Brantley for the closer, Rod Beck. Nixon, a base hit. So Otis, who can fly, leads off the 6th inning with a single. Only the Braves' 3rd hit of the night, and the first hit by somebody other than Terry Pendleton. Let's check in with Gary Miller.
Chris, we go to Yankee Stadium. Stanley's home runner tied it in the 5th. Now in the 6th with a man aboard, Ozzie Guillen goes opposite field off Scott Kamenicki, his 2nd ground rule double of the night. It'll score Warren Newsom. The Sox now have 2 on in the 7th with 2 outs. They've knocked Kamenicki out of the game. He'd won 12 straight at home. They'll have to come from behind to keep him from losing. Back to you.
There's a pennant-type game in New York, although I don't think they have this scene right now. Jeff Blauser struck out and popped up. That's kind of Hickerson with a quick throw, and off his back foot throw to keep an eye on Otis Nixon. Otis is 31 of 39 in stolen base attempts this year. And Hickerson knows full well what kind of speed Nixon has. He has 336 lifetime stolen bases. Just 2 years ago stole 72. Once upon a time in AAA stole 94 for Columbus. Came over here in April of '91. Has been involved with 3 fine ball clubs. Don't underestimate his contribution.
Well, they're keeping him close at first base. Hickerson aware of his great base stealing skills, and he wants to give his catcher a shot. Jeff Reed, catching tonight, has thrown out 39% of the runners. That's a very good number. Anything over 30% is a plus. So you give him a chance, and he's got a shot.
Up top for a ball.
They talked about Jeff Blauser's season at the plate. Early on, they were pitching him inside, and he was all over that pitch. Then they made the adjustment, pitched him away. He slumped for a while. Now he is adjusted to the outside pitch, and he said, hey, they're pitching me away. I'm going that way, and right now he's red hot.
Makes Hickerson step off the rubber.
We see Reed throwing out 39%. Manwaring, an excellent defensive catcher, but leading the league in throwing out runners. It tells you that Dick Pohl's done a very good job with his pitching staff as far as holding runners on and giving their catchers a chance. Holding the ball.
There goes Nixon. Throw by Reed is a one-hopper, and Otis is stolen base number 32.
Jeff Reed had a pretty good shot at throwing Nixon out there. He just rushed his throw, and it was to the shortstop side of the bag and short. But Hickerson mixed it up. Watch the jump at first base. Not that good a jump. He unloads quickly. Look at Nixon looking toward the plate. It's a good throw for Reed to handle. But he rushes it, throws it into the dirt, and Nixon has a stolen base.
Now this there's Dick Pohl, the pitching coach, the former pitcher of the Red Sox. This is only the second time tonight the Braves have had a base runner in scoring position. The first time tonight was Fred McGriff, who then was plated from second base with a 2-out single by Pendleton in the fourth. The Giants have had 5 in scoring position. Only 1 has scored. And Blauser showing bunt, pulled it back 2-1.
Well, this is why Blauser is such a valuable number 2 hitter. Not only can he handle the bat with the bunt, he can hit the ball on the right side of the infield. And if you think you're going to groove one to allow him to bunt it, he can take you out of the ballpark. So he can do a lot of things that Hickerson has to try to combat.
There's a strike called, 2-2. 1-1 game. Bottom of the 6th inning. Nixon at second base with none out. Pendleton the single with 2 outs in the 4th for the Braves run. And Matt Williams with the single with 2 outs in the 5th for the Giants run. The old cat and mouse going on.
In a bunt situation here, Blauser wants to push it down, but with 2 strikes, he's just going to try to ground it on the right side of the infield. Move Nixon over that way.
With the way the Giants have thrown, and Peter, you pointed out either catcher and the way the pitchers hold them on. But it's a 1-1 game. Would we see Nixon trying to steal third, Buck?
If he can get a walking leadoff second, he might take a shot, but with this particular part of the lineup, I don't expect him to risk it.
Bounce, handled by Reed, full count. The wheels and the stomach churning for Dusty and Coxey. Trying to cut that giant margin of 3.5 games. Closest the Braves have been since May 17th. Will do it again on the full count.
See, Blauser really fighting to hit that ball on the right side of the field. Take a shot at the right side of the infield. Maybe you drive one through there. Nixon scores easily on a base hit. Remember, it rained hard here early in the evening, and the outfield grass is still wet. Make it very difficult for an outfielder to charge and throw.
Pretty well to right center field. McGee and Martinez going back. And Willie won't catch it. It's off the wall. Nixon around third base. Here's the throw. Not in time. 2-1 Braves. As soon as the Braves get a runner to second base, they cash in. 24th double of the year for Blauser, who continues to swing the red-hot bat.
Blauser drives the ball to right field. He was thinking about hitting the ball to the right side and drives it over the glove of McGee. Martinez plays it perfectly, gets it to Robbie Thompson, who unloads the relay in a hurry. It's just up the line and too late to get Nixon at the plate. Look at Nixon. He has to hold up to make sure McGee doesn't catch it. But that great speed and a good turn around third allow him to beat Thompson's strong throw to the plate. What an at-bat by Jeff Blauser, who was trying to bunt the runner over and then drives a double off the wall in right center.
Ron Gant is up. Off-speed pitch, bunt, going to be trouble, but it runs foul. Oh, he would have been aboard, no doubt about that.
There's another guy thinking about advancing the base runner. Dusty Baker's club hasn't been able to cash in too many opportunities. The Braves, on the other hand, have only had 3 to this point, and they've cashed in 2 of them.
Gant has walked and popped to the second baseman. This foul down the left field line. That one may bring the rain back. Got out in front of it. He had a pitch he thought he could give a ride to, Buck.
Well, he tries to sneak the fastball by him, and look at how he's geared up for it. So much so that he pulls it out of play down the left field line. He's had some luck against Hickerson. Now, after you see a swing like that from a hitter, you got to take something off. You've got to throw him some kind of off-speed pitch. Looks like they're going to bust him inside, push him off the plate. He straightened him up with the fastball. Now, as a hitter, Gant's thinking, well, he's probably going to go away right now, so that's when Hickerson can back up that fastball with another one. Maybe get a pop-up inside.
Blauser, the runner at second base. Gant held off, and the count is even at 2-2. Hickerson tonight has made 86 pitches on this humid evening in Atlanta. Wait a minute. You talk about not paying your way to get in. Was that a bird that went through there?
No wonder he didn't swing at the pitch.
The bird was over for a strike. The pitch was inside for a ball. Good thing he didn't swing. Little chopper. Williams, long throw. Benzinger digs it out nicely. Blauser holding at second base. Quite get all of it, but there's the defense that we talked about with the Giants. And Dusty Baker's going to come to the mound. First, he's going to go to the umpire, so it looks like we're going to have a double switch. He'll talk to Joe West and tell him exactly what he has in mind.
Now Benzinger helps out Matt Williams as he digs that low throw out of the dirt to retire Gant. And now Dusty Baker's out. What a fine performance by Hickerson here when the Giants needed a strong start.
Kevin Rogers coming in. Good job by Hickerson tonight. Porch at the Polo Grounds, and Dusty Baker is traded one left-handed pitcher for another one. Kevin Rogers is on, and Brian Hickerson stands to lose the game. But boy, I frankly thought he outpitched John Smoltz, gentlemen.
He sure did. He's thinking about a couple of pitches during the course of the ball game, but just 4 hits over 6 1/3 innings, and he doesn't have much to hang his head about. But when you're in a skid like the Giants right now, everybody feels like they're letting their team down somewhat.
Rogers very tough on left-handed batters, and he starts McGriff off with a strike. Dusty used him on night 1 in St. Louis when he came on in relief of John Perkett, helped Perkett beat Tewksbury. This is the youngster comes right up in the heat of a 1-run game, and Baker will use him at any time. He's his best lefty out of the pen. The pitcher Rogers will hit 7th. The shortstop Mike Benjamin will hit in the 9th slot, so Royce Clayton is out of the game. Here's Hickerson's night. 87 pitches, did very well, but can only lose and is also responsible for Blauser at second base. Count is 0-2 to McGriff. Oh, I hope nobody got hurt on that one. That one just went wide of the screen. And by the hush of the crowd, those are dangerous.
You just can't even react to that. All that was
somebody's down. Somebody's down in the crowd. No, we hope they're okay. You have no shot. Blauser at second base. Count is 0-2. Good pitching by Rogers to strike out McGriff. 2 outs.
Well, that's what Dusty Baker was looking for when he brought Kevin Rogers in to face Fred McGriff. Rogers has an explosive fastball. He goes upstairs and blows away big Fred McGriff. He came right at him and overmatched him. Now they've got a base open again with Pendleton, the switch hitter, up.
Jeff Brantley pitching in the bullpen. One of the last links of the Giants. Teams that won pennants in '89 and '87. The difference here, they're going to put on Pendleton, the switch hitting Pendleton, and Rogers will pitch to the left-hander Justice. I was going to say, at least you don't have Pendleton who has owned Hickerson. So Pendleton now will be aboard all 3 times tonight. And David Justice up in a key moment of the ball game. The Braves leading it 2-1 have scored 1 here in the 6th on Blauser's double. They've got 2 on, although the Giants have had opportunities. They aren't scoring runs. And a base hit would plate 1. An extra base hit would plate at least 2, depending on which variety of extra base hit you're talking about.
Well, they're going with percentages. Pendleton has shown them tonight they're all over the left-hander. They're going to have Justice come to the plate with 2 down and hope that Rogers can handle him the same way he handled Fred McGriff.
The number 2 home run hitter in the National League with 35, David Justice. But Rogers against lefties. Lefties are batting just .217 against the 25-year-old. Just turned 25 about 10 days ago. Kevin Rogers born in Cleveland, Mississippi. David Justice with the shot to bust it open some. Blauser at second. Pendleton at first. 2 down. 2-1 Braves. Bottom of the 6th. And Reed will go out to talk to Rogers. He may just say, what, he got heart there. Pitch with a lot of heart tonight.
Yeah, he sure did. He made some tough pitches when he had to.
Oh, the last 4 days have had very good pitching performances from Solomon Torres, a very important debut. Scott Sanderson again in Florida, and now Hickerson.
Bat goes flying over Rogers' head. Benziger makes the play. Rogers sawed him off and also mowed him down. But the Braves have picked up one. They lead it 2-1.
Yankee Stadium, Jack McDowell with a 2-1 lead with a man in scoring position. Pat Kelly hits a bullet into the left field corner. Stanley, who had earlier homered for the Yankees' only run, comes around to tie it again. The White Sox are batting in the top of the 8th. It is 2-all between these contenders. We take you back to our 3 men in Atlanta.
All right, Gary, thank you. We begin the 7th inning. 7th inning stretch time if you're a Giant fan. And I don't know, I saw 46,000 people on their feet. Well, they just want to get up.
They're standing. Just friendly people. They want to make the Giants feel at home.
Yeah, they made them feel really at home with all the tomahawks and Giant slang and everything else. They've been very friendly, though. You're right. It has not been a hostile situation. Reed, Benjamin, and Reed pokes one down the left field line. This will rattle in the corner. Takes a bounce away from Gant. Reed opens up the Giants' 7th, down by a run with a double. The Giants' 4th double of the night, and remember, they only have 5 hits.
John Smoltz has thrown an awful lot of pitches here tonight. He's had to make a couple of tough fielding plays, and he tries to get ahead of Jeff Reed going away from him. And there's that moving fastball. He slices it down toward the left field corner, well inside the foul line. Frank Pulley indicates fair. It rattles around in the corner. Ronnie Gant gets to it. But Jeff Reed has the leadoff double. Now he's going to give way to a pinch runner. So he starts things off for the Giants here in the 7th inning, and that'll end his night.
Steve Scarsoni will be the pinch runner for Reed. I assume we will see Manwaring now behind the plate. Scarsoni, when Robbie Thompson was hurt just before the All-Star break, what a great job filling in. And the Giants took 3 or 4 from Philadelphia. He did an outstanding job at second base. The Giants have not done an outstanding job with runners in scoring position again. They have their 6th runner in scoring position. Only one thus far has made it to the plate. Mike Benjamin, who came in with the double switch in the last inning, hitting in the 9 slot. So he is up.
What Dusty Baker wants right here is this bunt to go down to Pendleton, so it pulls him away from third base.
Obviously, Smoltz pitching way down and outside to make that bunt almost an impossibility.
Well, you've got to wait him out. You get a strike over the plate, and you should be able to bunt it and make Pendleton field it. Fred McGriff from first base is really charging hard. He'll be well down there around home plate, looking to get that runner over at third. So you've got to draw Pendleton away from third.
There's the bunt. Smoltz off the mound quickly, but he'll have to go to first. The Lemke covering. Benjamin does the job, and the tying run is 90 feet away from home plate.
Good job by Mike Benjamin. He kills it right in front of home plate. Even though he doesn't run it down the third baseline, you can see he just deadens it. Smoltz has to come in. But one play for him, and that's on to first. So good job by Mike Benjamin in his first at bat.
Now we're seeing some action down in the Braves bullpen for the first time. Looks like Bedrock getting up, Steve Bedrosian, and Mike Stanton, a left-hander. They're up and throwing as the Giants are 90 feet away from tying this thing. 1 out. 7th inning. 2-1 Braves. Dave Martinez up. Thompson on deck. Bedrock, the one with the big beard and the right-handed throw. Pitch missed for ball 1. Dave Martinez tonight is 0 for 3. Flew out to right field, struck out, grounded back to the pitcher. Playing in place of the injured Darren Lewis, who they may get back this weekend in St. Louis. They're hoping for the Sunday game. Up top, ball
2. 2-0. Scarsoni, the pinch runner at third. Martinez trying to bring him home against John Smoltz. That's the difference between the Braves lead and the tie game. This is bird cam. Now, the bird that flew in earlier in the game, we have a camera mounted on the bird's beak. We stop at nothing here on ESPN. Off-speed pitch, little looper down the right field line. Gonna drop in. Scarsoni scores. We're tied at 2. So instead of a sac fly, a bloop fly, an RBI single for Martinez, and we're knotted up.
Very sound fundamental baseball by the Giants here in the 7th to get back to a tie situation. Benjamin bunts the base runner over to third, and then Martinez delivers a little flare down the right field line. Dumps it in front of Dave Justice. Picks up the RBI. Martinez, his first hit of the night, and the Giants have tied it 2-all.
They will keep an eye on Martinez, who has some speed. Davey this year in the stolen base department, only 6. He's only been in 73 games, so he can run. I don't think we'll see that. We might hit and run with Thompson right here. That's what we might see.
Yeah, this is a good combination here with Martinez at first base, Robbie Thompson at the plate, who handles the bat well. And Martinez might have knocked the wind out of himself over at first base. Took some time. Now they'll go through the signs again.
Stadium quieted down. The Braves have been tied at 2. Pitch look down and out of the strike zone. This is another long run for Justice. He just can't get it. A good effort. It falls foul.
Justice made a game-ending catch on a very similar ball like that during the last homestand when he dove in foul ground and caught it. He's coming hard, thinking about maybe a repeat of the same play, but just comes up short.
You know, I know he didn't get that one, Buck and Peter, but to me, he's played a much more confident right field this year than he has before.
Well, he's one of the most improved outfielders in the league over a 3-year period. But again, it's very hard work. He goes out with Jimmy Williams a lot to work on a lot of different aspects of outfield play.
0-1 pitch to Thompson. Hit well to left. Back goes Gant, but he's got room. Makes the catch. Martinez back to first. There's 2 out. So Smoltz, the workhorse, trying to get out of the 7th inning. Now we'll face Willie McGee with Williams and Bonds behind him. 2-2 game, top of the 7th. And oh, by the way, in case you've forgotten, the Braves, having beaten the Giants 4 games in the last week plus head-to-head, with tonight and tomorrow to come, have pulled to within 3.5 back, the closest they've been since May 17th. The Giants stop the bleeding, or the Braves keep the charge. Ripped foul by McGee.
Now, Willie is a guy you have no idea how to pitch to. Whitey Herzog's great line about him was, he's one hitting instructor from going from 340 to 240.
There's no book on Willie McGee. He can hit it up the beak of his cap or off the top of his shoes to any of the 3 fields.
Lifetime .298 here. They'll keep an eye on Martinez. Told you about the 2 batting titles in his years in St. Louis. When he went to Oakland and then the Giants, he's come home. Bay Area product from Richmond, California, which is right next to Oakland, Berkeley. Hayward. They got to think no matter what, even if Smoltz gets out of here, that he's gone. As it is, he's the 3rd man up in the inning, so now I know he's gone, but he's really up there in the pitch count at this point. This is his 112th pitch. Count is 0-2 on McGee.
And he's worked hard all night. We've seen him in earlier innings go in between innings and get the smelling salts. He's taken oxygen tonight. It's a hot, humid night. He's had to cover first base on several very tough plays. He's put in a very, very hard effort here tonight.
It's been a hard day's night. Is that what you're trying to sing to me? He's been working like a dog. 0-2 pitch up top. And Berryhill looks Martinez back to first base. I think this is what the Giants have wanted in the series. They haven't had the opportunity. Even with all their injuries we mentioned earlier, guys, they'll take their chances with their bullpen against the Atlanta bullpen. That they still feel is in their favor despite the injuries elsewhere.
There's no question about that. And I think here you've seen Mike Stanton's been struggling. They're a little reluctant to go to him. Of course, you saw the home run last Friday night that Derek May hit off him, and you know, there's still a little reluctance. Greg McMichael's done a great job for him at the end, but
Giants pen hoping the bubble doesn't burst. They have been tremendous this year. There goes the runner on a hit and run. But McGriff makes the play on McGee, and the Giants are gone. 7th inning stretch time here in Atlanta. Tie ball game. Don't go anywhere. 2-2 game, bottom of the 7th inning. Glad you could join us here in Atlanta. The Giants and the Braves in a tense pennant race game. And well, someone's going to move Ted from now on, I think, because, well, first we got to move Joe West, but there's Ted in front of a rival network's banner. How could that happen?
I know Brown people are very big in this town, Chris. I mean, Ted Turner, Kurt Bennett, Mary Chapin Carpenter, and you.
It's a Brunonia kind of week, isn't it? And Ted in a good seat here as well. He deserves, and it looked like temporary boxes right down behind the on-deck circle. He can talk to the guys in the on-deck circle whenever he wants to. Of course, he can anyway, since he owns the team. And of course, remember that one day when he actually talked to everybody?
Yeah,
when he made himself manager for one day?
That lasted one day.
Yeah, one day. Not many people could say they managed in the big leagues. Us Brown guys will look for that angle.
Wearing Cito Gaston shoes.
The only ones that would fit him.
7-8-9 here for the Braves in the bottom of the 7th inning against the left-handed reliever Kevin Rogers. Berryhill, Lemke, and Smoltz due up, and Kurt Manwaring, as we thought, has gone in to catch. Remember, Reed started and went out after his double. The pinch runner was Scarsoni, so now Manwaring on in behind the plate. Mark Wohlers now throwing in the Atlanta bullpen. Rogers with some good zip on the ball, Buck. And the count is 1-2.
Chris, he's got a very good arm, and it's got a little skip in his fastball. He can overpower the hitters with that fastball top of the strike zone. That's what Dusty Baker likes about his arm. He saw that back in spring training, and he stuck with him, and he's done a fine job.
Rip, watch it. That had some hair on it into the stands. And, you know, out of nowhere, Buck, you noticed it first. I thought maybe all of a sudden we got a fan here in the booth. I knew that wasn't possible, but I look up and look at the flags.
Well, that's really significant in this ballpark, too, because the ball will jump when the wind's going like it is right now, basically from the first base line out toward left center.
I mean, I look at the flags over the scoreboard in center field, and they're blowing either straight out or from right to left. And we haven't seen a ripple all night. It's as if the front has moved through in a matter of minutes. Where's the Weather Channel when you need it? Maybe Ted ought to stand in front of that banner. So keep that in mind, that long ball may be a little more possibility now in the late innings of a tie game. Rogers, 1-2 pitch to Berryhill. Foul back, we'll do it again. Well, we like to thank our friends at Blockbuster Video, the blimp, but the wind's picked up. They got to go. So they're gone. It's fun while it lasted, guys. Well, they want to beat the traffic, I guess. 7th inning, not many people have left the park. Grounded foul wide at the Giants dugout. Now we're seeing the work of Kevin Rogers, who came up for only a cup of coffee last year with the Giants. Just 6 games. Pitched in Cleveland, Mississippi, we told you, went to community college down in his home state of Mississippi. Now this is going to be tough. The media guy that says he eats a baked potato the night before every start, which he doesn't do here, and spaghetti on the nights he pitches. So they're getting the pasta revved up in the Giants clubhouse right now.
Well, this is the scenario Dusty Baker and Nick Pohl were hoping for. Brian Hickerson pitched them into the 6th inning and then go to Rogers, and they've got Mike Jackson warming up down in the pen, and then they hopefully will have a closing situation for Rod Beck.
Well, they have a well-rested Rod Beck, who of course has not pitched at all in the 4 games against Atlanta. He worked 1 inning on Monday night in their 5-1 win at Florida, only to get the work. There's Rod. Now he looks like a closer. There's some Al Hrabosky in him. There's some Raleigh fingers. I mean, he just looks like a closer, doesn't he?
Samurai stopper. 38 saves, whatever he's doing, it's working.
1-2 pitch to Berryhill, and Rogers parries him. There's 1 out. Well, we told you it's football weekend, and we begin tomorrow night with our weekend kickoff special, getting you set for college football at 7:30 Eastern. Then Pitt at Southern Miss. Johnny Majors back coaching the Panthers. His Golden Eagles. That's tomorrow night following our kickoff special. Then don't forget game day and our double dip on Saturday of college football and the scoreboard shows, and of course Sunday game day in prime time, and Monday night prime Monday. So we're ready for you, Pigskin fans. Mark Lemke fouls the first pitch off, and it's out of play. Francisco Cabrera has moved into the on-deck circle to bat for the pitcher, John Smoltz. And what does he have that nobody in this park has? He's the proud possessor of an ESPY. He's the only one in the park to have won an ESPY. Pitch by Rogers to Lemke, bounced up the middle. Going to be a tough play for Benjamin, and again Benzinger digs 1 out at first base. So good defense by the Giants, even though both Benjamin and Benzinger are not the regulars.
Todd Benzinger picks up the shortstop Benjamin with a scoop of a low throw. Look at the range shown by Benjamin. Behind the bag at second base, throws on the run. And watch Benzinger's concentration as he digs out the low throw. Throw in the dirt. Benzinger sticks with it, closes the glove, and brings up 1 key.
Now Dusty Baker out to the mound. Now that they've announced the right-handed pinch hitter Cabrera, he will probably go to Mike Jackson, although he hasn't yet made the call. And no, he won't. He just wanted a word with Rogers. He really likes the way he's throwing.
Well, he can keep him in this situation and then have him should they get down to Fred McGriff. So he went out there to check with him.
I'll tell you why. Because if they brought Jackson in, he would be the 4th man due up in the 8th inning. Game is tied right now. He didn't want to burn him to just 1 batter.
Another aspect of it is Cabrera. He is strong out over the plate, even though he's got good pitch hitting numbers. 316 for the season. Rogers has enough on his fastball to come inside and pound Cabrera inside.
Rogers to Cabrera, outside, ball 1. Bases clear, 2 out, bottom of the 7th, tie ball game. Braves scoring in the 4th on a 2-out single by Terry Pendleton, scoring in the 6th on a double by Blauser. Outside ball 2. The Giants scoring in the 5th on a single by Williams, and then in the 7th, top of this inning, on a single by Martinez.
Well, right here it looks like Dusty Baker is set to have Rogers work the outside part of the plate. If he misses to Cabrera, accept the walk.
A bouncer to Benjamin. You called it, Buck. That's the way they worked him. This one was over the plate. He chopped it to short. 2-2 after 7. base in the third inning. Matt Williams pitch over his head by Smoltz, but it bounced back to the catcher. Thompson eventually was stranded. In the fifth inning, McGee will score on this rocket off the wall by Williams, but with 2 outs, he thought he beat the relay thrower, at least the tag. He was called out rather than being on second when Bonds came up. So the Giants are doing some work, but most of the little things, until that little bleeder from Martinez dropped in to tie the game, most of the little things have gone the way of the Atlanta Braves. We're tied at 2, top of the 8th, and the reliever on for John Smoltz is Mark Bay City Wohlers.
Well, this is his 34th game of the season. A very fine 5-1 record, 3.44 ERA. Opponents batting just 198 against Mark Wohlers. And he is the closer of the future for Bobby Cox. Right now working out of the middle innings of the bullpen.
Matt Williams has stung the ball now 4 times tonight, but this one right to Terry Pendleton. Barry Bonds coming up. First, here's Gary.
Tight game at Yankee Stadium. We check it out with the bases loaded. Frank Thomas had just been hit by a pitch to break a 2-all tie. Now Ventura off reliever Bob Wickman squeaks it through there, gets in range and Cora. Jack McDowell's giving it to the bullpen with a 5-2 lead in the 8th.
Barry Bonds up here, and he swings at the first pitch from the fastball pitching Wohlers, and he'll foul it back. The boos meeting Barry at the plate or accompanying him to the plate. He is thrown out to left, walked, and struck out on a pitch that he didn't like the call from by Joe West.
Yeah, it was a low curveball that Bonds felt was out of the strike zone. Well, he's going to have to change his thinking here against Mark Wohlers. Everything Wohlers throws is hard. Hard slider, hard fastball.
Ooh, that was real hard.
The feeling on Mark Wohlers, if he can just show that he can get his slider or his forkball over the plate, and he throws like that pitch 97 miles an hour, he's unhittable. Guys just cannot get swings against him.
There's the forkball he missed low with.
After Bonds at bat, Peter, tell us how close to truth the Dibble for Wohlers and Merker trade was down to the wire.
Well, the Reds would have loved to have done it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Last night, what they would have done, the Atlanta was the only team interested in Dibble. They were offered Dibble for Wohlers and Merker, and because the Braves need a 5th starter 6 times the rest of the year, hence why they wanted Dennis Martinez, the Reds said, okay, we'll take Merker at the end of the year. You can keep him and make him the player to be named later, but they just wouldn't give up these 2 great arms.
2-2 pitch to Bonds. It's inside, and we're gone full. So Barry was rung up on a full count pitch the last time.
A curveball.
Matter of fact, they've gone 3-2 on Bonds all 3 times tonight.
Well, you can bet he's going to get a fastball here.
Bonds bet it, swung at it, but skied it. Nixon calls off Blauser, and there are 2 down. Peter, I mean, I got to think the Braves did some good thinking overall. Rob Dibble can be overpowering, and yes, they would like an overpowering closer, but for either Wohlers or Merker, I still feel can catch fire. You know, they're just kind of waiting for them.
Well, Wohlers can be a very dominant pitcher, close to as dominant as Dibble. And Merker's a key guy for them. They don't have any more starting pitching up in their farm system. I mean, if Merker just shows that he can get his breaking ball over the plate, he can be a terrific starter, particularly when you consider all they're asking him to be is a 5th man behind the best foursome in baseball.
This is Todd Benzinger, who just gets under the pitch from Wohlers a little bit. Nixon gets under it in center field, and the Giants are gone 1-2-3. We head to the bottom of the 8th, tied at 2. The top of the order coming up for the Atlanta Braves. 2, bottom of the 8th here in Atlanta. Middle game of a 3-game set. The Braves trying to make it 5 in a row over the first-place Giants. And Rogers looked good in relief, and now on the hard-throwing right-hander Mike Jackson, the thriller.
Well, you can say his hits per innings pitched, a very good ratio for Mike Jackson. Doesn't walk many batters, just 15 this season. Jackson spent a stint on the disabled list. You can see his right knee has got the heavy brace on it. He banged up his knee in a collision covering first base back in July. He was just activated the 9th of August. And he is one of the 3 pitchers that they acquired from the Mariners in that Kevin Mitchell deal. And they've all played prominent roles here with San Francisco.
Top of the order coming up for Atlanta. Otis Nixon, Jeff Blauser, Ron Gant. Last time they came up in the 6th inning, Nixon singled, stole second, scored on a double by Blauser. At the time, it gave the Braves a 2-1 lead. Here we go, and Jackson starts with a fastball up top for a ball. Chris Berman, Buck Martinez, and Peter Gammons with you as we just will be right on every big game there is that we can cover. That one is inside out, but it's a foul ball.
Well, they don't expect Otis Nixon to be able to get around much on Mike Jackson's fastball. Look at Bonds in left field. Very shallow and over to the line. Abe Martinez shaded around toward left. Take a look at this shot. He's taking a bid down that line, but it slices foul and out of play.
Bonds made an excellent catch off Nixon down the line last night. He almost got it down into the corner.
Now look at the way Bonds is playing, as you saw. It'll be tough to squeeze one between Bonds and the line. One pitch, you notice waved at it. 2-2.
Well, Nixon got on in the 6th inning when he singled to center field and came around to score after he stole second. That was the tying run.
Hard throw by Jackson. Bunt attempt. Jackson had to come up with 2 hard throws to nail Nixon at first base. You don't have much time coming off the mound when Otis is running to first.
It almost looked like Mike Jackson was going to be too deliberate as he barehanded that ball and took his time. But he reached back for his good fastball when he finally got a hand on it. Nixon, a very good bunter. Right off the end of the bat in front of the mound. Jackson off quickly, and he barehands it very deliberately, but then he reaches back for that good fastball and gets Nixon by a half a step.
So 1 out. Jeff Blauser, double in 3 trips to the plate tonight, and Jackson backs him off. Now, we told you that Blauser is the hottest hitter of these Braves, hitting over 400 in these last 20 games, of which the Braves have won 17 of them.
Well, he drove in that second run of the ballgame with a drive over the glove of Willie McGee in right center. He has been hitting the ball very hard to right field. You look at Matt Williams protecting the line, guarding against extra bases down there.
Breaking ball up 2-0.
Jackson throws a hard fastball and a very hard breaking pitch.
Fastball is fouled in play for Benzinger, who makes the catch, and there are 2 outs. College game day Saturday, beginning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, with Chris, and Coach, Craig, and the gang, and then Rice and Ohio State at 12:30. Our residents in college scoreboard at 7. Texas and Colorado at 7:30. Double dip, studio shows, scores, all you'll need on Saturday. Spend a bit of Labor Day weekend with us here at ESPN. We got you covered. Ron Gant looks at a pitch outside from Jackson, ball 1. Looking ahead to the 9th inning for the Giants. Jackson due up first, then Manwaring, then Benjamin. 7, 8, 9. Jackson wanted to play it himself, but the proper call is to let someone else handle it. Benzinger did. So a 1-2-3 inning for Mike Jackson. Well, we began the game with the William Tell overture, and we're riding into the 9th, tied at 2. The pinch hitter for the Giants One of the many September 1st call-ups. John Patterson, infielder, been recalled from his injury rehabilitation assignment. He'd been playing down at Single-A San Jose. He comes off the DL. He bats for the pitcher, Mike Jackson. And with the way this game and how serious the implications are, and stop the bleeding and move on to maybe now just play baseball, tie game, you pinch hit for Jackson and have Beck warming up. There is no underplaying the importance of this, especially for the Giants. Patterson rips the ball to right. Back it goes. Back. Gone! I don't believe it. The role players have done the job for the Giants all year. Here's a guy who has never hit a home run in the major leagues. Goodbye. 3-2 San Francisco.
Well, Wohlers fell behind him, and Patterson had the advantage of just sitting on a fastball. His first at bat this season. He had shoulder surgery in the offseason. It's been an entire year of rehab. Hits his first career home run when the Giants needed it most.
Well, he was a guy a couple of years ago. He was the second baseman double play partner for Royce Clayton in Double-A. They thought he was going to be a terrific offensive player, either play second or center field with Robbie Thompson. And of course, injury, and shoulder injury, laid him out for a year.
Well, you talk about a break. Dusty Baker's been searching for a break now for a couple of weeks. And that might have been the one that gets him turned around.
On a team with Bonds and Williams and McGee and Clark and Thompson, perhaps the biggest blow of the year could have been struck by a man batting for the first time for the Giants this season on September 1st. It's also the first dinger that Wohlers has allowed this year. Count is 2-2 on Manwaring. Wohlers strikes him out with some high heat.
Let's take a look at John Patterson's first career home run. He had the count in his favor. 2 balls and no strikes, and that looks like a home run swing. He got all of the fastball and goes right into that jet stream area down the line. Ball really flies out of the ballpark there. Bobby Bonds gives him 5, and that's a pumped up young man right there. He has put his team ahead here in the 9th.
Mike Benjamin fouls this off. So now the imposing figure warming up in the bullpen is Rod Beck. And the Giants have just waited for this opportunity. We've said it, that they will take their bullpen over Atlanta's bullpen. And if Beck can close it, that's exactly the way they played the game tonight. Count is 0-2 to Benjamin. There's Rod Beck. Maybe he's going to throw. Maybe he's going to throw that warming up. Wouldn't surprise me.
Waiting a while for another save opportunity.
Crowd is stunned. Beck will face McGriff, Pendleton, and Justice. So you talk about heat versus heat. We've got it for you here coming up in the 9th. Second strikeout for Wohlers. Benjamin sits down.
Totally different story when Wohlers gets ahead in the count, as he does here to Benjamin, and then he comes with the breaking ball. Benjamin can't pull the trigger. Second consecutive strikeout, but it comes after the leadoff home run by John Patterson.
Wohlers now pitches to Dave Martinez. But the man of the hour for the Giants, John Patterson. Had this game been played on August 31st, he wouldn't have been on this roster. But because it's September 1st, he's here and he's delivered. Grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. Here's a chopper by Martinez that's handled by Lepke, and it's over to McGriff. So we head to the bottom of the 9th. The heavy metal coming up for the Braves against the heavy metal for the Giants. McGriff
And Pendleton and Justice coming up against Beck. John Patterson's homer has given the Giants the lead. Taking a rare lead. They lead it 3-2 in the bottom of the ninth inning on the home run by John Patterson. This is only the second half inning in the 5 games between the two teams that they have had the lead. McGriff, Pendleton, and Justice against Rod Beck, the all-star. He of the 38 saves.
Well, this is his 60th game of the season, and this is one he's been looking for a while. The Giants are trying to put the skids on this mini slump they're in. They got a well-pitched game tonight from the starter, Brian Hickerson. Kevin Rogers came on and did a fine job out of the pen, and Mike Jackson worked an inning. And now Rod Beck, their closer, is trying to wrap things up for the Giants and Dusty Baker. But he's got his hands full. The heart of the Braves lineup here in the ninth inning.
Fred McGriff, Terry Pendleton, David Justice up. The war chants are whooping up here in Atlanta. A crowd of 49,290. McGriff and Justice standing 2-3 in the home run race. Heat from Beck. McGriff swings and misses 1-1.
Well, they've worked Fred McGriff upstairs, and that's the book on Freddie. You got to keep the ball up. He likes it down and out over the plate, and he can drive it out of the ballpark anywhere. Staying upstairs again, trying to get him to chase. For a power guy, Fred McGriff has a very good eye, and he can take a lot of real close pitches.
Foul back by McGriff. The count is 2-2. Giants relief tonight. 2 2/3 innings. No hits. Nobody has hit the ball out of the infield. Like we said, they'll take their chances with the bullpen.
There's McGriff's good eye.
That's a tough forkball to lay off right there. And he's got one of the best split fingers around.
Crowd on their feet to try and root the Braves magic. So prevalent late in 91, late in 92, and here in 93. McGriff gets under this one. Fly to center. Martinez played him real deep, but has plenty of time to make the play. And there's one out in the Atlanta ninth. Sports Center coming up after the game. They'll have all the baseball. It is set for week 1 in the NFL. Everything else going on in sports, the U.S. Open tennis, but I don't know. We're here in Atlanta. To me, this is the only thing going on in sports tonight.
Well, the Atlanta fans are on their feet now. They've got Pendleton at the plate.
Terry is 2 for 2 and an intentional walk. Rips this to center field, but Martinez is there, and there are 2 outs. So here you go. David Justice up. Has homered 6 times in his last 6 games. Had 4 RBIs last night. Has homered off Rod Beck. In 6 at-bats, has 2 hits, 1 of them a home run. Power versus power. In a game that the Giants hope will stop their bleeding, or if the Braves win it, a game they hope will break the Giants' back. Strike 1. Justice taken all the way. They check it with the third base umpire, Frank Pulley. He did not go around. Good call by Frank. 1-1.
Giants ask for the appeal. Let's have a look at what Pulley saw. Good call. Good fork ball.
Oh, man. That was a fork and spoon ball. Count is 1-2.
Dusty Baker said it's been a while since he's been out to shake hands after a game, and he misses it.
He may have his opportunity in a matter of seconds. has struck out Justice, looking to end the game. And the Giants have stopped the bleeding. They go back up by 4.5 on the Braves. They win here in Atlanta 3-2. And on a team that's gotten so much productivity from its non-big name players, Brian Hickerson and John Patterson, the stars tonight.
They came up big time tonight. Dusty Baker got in a situation where he could go to his bullpen, and he got 3 2/3 innings of no-hit pitching out of his bullpen. Rob Beck wraps it up for his 39th save.
And the magical thing about pennant races is a guy like John Patterson, a guy who had rotator cuff surgery, was out an entire year, had 68 at-bats in rehab at San Jose.
Well, that young man, with only his 20th at-bat as a Giant, does the job. Beck mows down Justice to end it. But his first at-bat of the season, his first major league home run, it may not be the shot heard round the world, but for the Giants, it's a shot they'll long remember. For Buck Martinez and Peter Gammons, Chris Berman, so long from Atlanta.